So welcome to a special broadcast ahead of the reading of the midterm budget. This will be done by Minister of Finance, Cassiel Ato Forson. We're told at 14:00 hours live from Parliament House. So Channel 1 Television is previewing the reading of that statement with a panel discussion to outline what the key questions Minister Forson would want to answer with this budget, and also why you should care about a midterm budget. We'll also sit through the budget reading and analyze immediately what the information it puts out means for you and your business. When we come back, I'll tell you who my guests are and how you can be part of the program. Stay with us.
From across Ghana to the heart of Tamale, the very best of made in Ghana products, services, innovation, education, enterprise, homegrown businesses, and indigenous corporate organizations are all coming together at one exciting event. The Northern Business Fair 2026, your one-stop destination to discover, shop, connect, network, and explore new business opportunities in Northern Ghana. Whether you are an entrepreneur, investor, student, business owner, or consumer, this is where Ghanaian excellence meets opportunity. Join us on Saturday 25th and Sunday 26th July 2026 at Jubilee Park Tamale from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. Are you ready to showcase your business to the nation and beyond? Call 0205-973-973 now and secure your spot. The Northern Business Fair 2026 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from City FM, and it's proudly sponsored by EcoBank, the National Petroleum Authority, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, North Shore Apparel Ghana Limited, and SIC Insurance PLC. The Northern Business Fair 2026, your market, your connections, your growth.
What if your ideas could shape the future of education in Ghana? If you were a brilliant pre-secondary student aged 11 to 15, this is your moment to shine. Welcome to the Literacy Challenge 2026, the national literacy competition that celebrates young thinkers, great writers, and future leaders. This year's challenge is all about artificial intelligence and education. The topic: in not less than 600 words, write a letter to the Minister of Education as a youth consultant discussing the advantages and disadvantages of the use of artificial intelligence (AI) in education. Advise on how Ghana can effectively integrate AI into basic schools to improve teaching and learning, while ensuring that students in rural and underserved communities are not left behind. Remember, your essay must be in your own handwriting, must be endorsed by a parent, guardian or teacher, and include your full contact details. Submit your entry by Thursday 30th July 2026 at the front desk of Channel 1 TV or PO Box GP 14123 Accra Central. Stand a chance to win 10,000 Ghana cedis cash, a laptop, and earn the title of Ghana's most outstanding all-round pre-secondary student. For more information, call 0205-973-973. The Literacy Challenge 2026 is powered by City FM with support from Channel 1 TV. And it's proudly sponsored by Prospectus Ghana Limited, SIC Insurance, and Advocates Publishing.
Welcome back. So this is a special broadcast on Channel 1 Television on 97.3 City FM ahead of Minister Cassiel Ato Forson's midterm budget and estimates. I'm sure you know that he's enjoined by the law to present midterm estimates of his budget. He would present the 2026 budget in November of the preceding year, and sometime after the middle of the year, he will present estimates if indeed the estimates do change. We'll be looking at what really he's going to do today and why you should care about it. I have a very crack panel of minds to help us analyze what Mr. Forson is going to do. We have from the tax side, because you know when you see finance minister who's an accountant, he's always thinking about taxes. So we invited the head of tax at Pricewaterhouse, Mr. Jijeje Fiajo, to join us this morning or this afternoon. Jij, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the head of tax.
No, I'm not.
What are you?
I'm a tax partner.
Right. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Tax partner, but you have a boss.
Yeah, I have a boss.
Okay.
So you have to make sure I don't lose my job today.
So you are a tax partner, but not the head of tax.
Not a head of tax.
Tax partner, PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four. Wonderful. We also have Mr. Nelson Kujo Kwagbeji, who is a financial analyst. So you're a pure finance guy. Wonderful. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
It's good to have you. Then we have what we call the real sector, the AGI, the organizations that predominantly manufacture. That association, the Greater Accra Regional Chair, is in the person of Mr. Cleance Chonam Akpelu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the program. And then from civil society, budget advocacy, we have the country head of Budget Ghana, Jennifer Moffat. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Bernard.
It's good to have you. We typically would start a discussion like this by asking everybody's expectation of the budget, but I feel it's better to do a quick overview of the economic numbers. Now, two big contexts for this. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank had its 131st meeting starting Monday, and the meeting concluded yesterday, Wednesday, with a statement. That statement gives us the monetary stance of the economy. As we know, the economy has two legs: the monetary side, which deals with money supply and interest rates, and the fiscal side, which deals with government taxes and expenditures. So what Mr. Forson is doing today is basically the fiscal leg of a two-legged economy. Prior to the MPC meeting, the central bank released its figures for the overall economy, looking at inflation, revenues, composite index of economic activity, external situation. That information is the basis for where we are. They released the information on 21st July to cover 2 quarters. So we're going to run through quickly what the highlights of that information point to so that we all know where we are working from. It is to be regretted, though, that that information they put out did not include revenue figures for the second quarter. So the government revenues and government expenditures for January, February, March 2026 is what we have in the data the central bank put out. So we'll be expecting Finance Minister Ato Forson to put out information on April, May, June to give us a clear sense of where we are half here. Be that as it may, let's just walk through quickly what the Bank of Ghana put out so we are on the same page. So we call it Ghana's half-year story. We put this together with our friends from Finex Skills Hub who are into a lot of these data analysis. We are dividing the presentation into just 6 key points. Point number 1 has to do with government revenue and spending and whether they are running a deficit or not. We need to point out that this is fiscal balance we're talking about, essentially taxes and expenditure, right? On the revenue side, for quarter 1, the orange, stay on the first slide, please. The orange chart talks about the program, what they expected, and then the provisional is the actual based on the time that this was published. So this is our domestic revenue is 57.5 as against 59 programmed. So for all the major revenue items, whether it's domestic revenue overall or tax revenue or non-tax or oil, the provisional is tracking slightly below the actual or the programmed or what was expected. But the variances are not too high. So for example, tax at the first quarter, you are 47.9 as against 49.8. Okay. Now, the only indicator that performed better than what was programmed was the category called Other. All right. The summary of this is that spending rules, when you talk about expenditure as well, because the government doesn't want to run a deficit, it also keeps spending in check so that if it doesn't raise the money, it doesn't spend it, right? So you look at total expenditure is below what was programmed, both provisionally, whether it's salaries or grants or capital expenditure or even interest payments. All the blue charts are lower than the orange charts. So what is the conclusion? Government essentially does not want to run a deficit of any kind. So its primary balance is a slight 1.1% on cash basis and has an overall surplus of 0.1%. So it's essentially running a balanced budget. Okay, that green chart is just telling you the percentage of revenue to GDP, 3.6% out of Q1. Okay, the target for the year is 14%. So government's target for 2024 was to get 12% GDP in taxes. 2025, 13%, 2026, 14%. As of March ending 2026, they had raised 3.6% in terms of the revenue they had gotten. So one of the things we expect Ato Forson to tell us is, by June, how are we doing getting that 14%? If you have 7% by June, it means you've met half. If you have below 7%, you have a problem. If you have above, you are doing well. So this 3.6% is Q1. Expenditure is also tracking less than 4% of GDP. Of course, this 0.1% balance is comparing actuals, not comparing percentages. Hope that makes sense. The second big thing we're showing is prices and money. And if you follow the central bank, the big discussion has been about inflation. The central bank maintained their monetary policy rate at 14% because the governor said, even though inflation has started inching up, they did not think that inflation was going to be such a huge problem to necessitate a cut in the, or an increase rather, in the monetary policy rate, an increase in the monetary policy rate. So they maintain it at 14%. Now, the lowest inflation we had was up to March 2026. So if you look at the chart, the inflation chart, please move to the inflation chart. That inflation number of 3.2% was for March. That was the lowest we had in the year. By April, it went to 3.7%, stayed the same in May, and is now 5.3% for June. So in fact, the governor said the disinflation process that began about a year and a half ago has ended. What that means is that the continuous lowering of inflation from 13.7% June last year all through to 3.2 has ended. But they are not thinking that inflation is going to rise so quickly outside their target band, because the government has a target band of plus or minus 8 plus or minus 2%. I think that's the figure, right? So they are saying even though inflation is going up, they are not as concerned about inflation as the upward uptake has shown. The other thing about inflation is that the Statistical Service is very kind to differentiate between food inflation and non-food inflation. And there's a story there. If you look at June 2025, the yellow line was higher than the red line. It meant that food inflation was a bigger issue last year. But for this year, non-food inflation is a bigger problem. So you notice that in March, non-food inflation was higher than food inflation, and it's now gone 6.3%, and food inflation is 3.9%. Maybe one of my panelists will explain why non-food is becoming an issue. Transportation, services, rising higher than food inflation. So that's a big item on inflation. So you notice 3.9% food inflation for June, 6.3% non-food inflation. Why is inflation important? Inflation is the rate at which prices are rising. That affects everything. It affects the rate at which banks lend to you, because once the central bank sets the monetary policy rate of 14%, some banks do plus or minus. There's something called the Ghana reference rate, about 10%. It's a very key indicator of many things. It affects credit to the private sector, and even affects people's ability to pay, all right? And even affects how much your salary is worth. If inflation is very high, your salary becomes quite useless. So inflation is a very important figure for an economy. The issue with inflation is that it can either be driven by money supply or it can be imported based on currency depreciation. So if you buy everything you use in Ghana from abroad and your currency depreciates, you import inflation. Other than that, inflation is also a product of money supply. And if you look at what they call money growth has been quite aggressive. The governor spoke about this yesterday. And the key one is what is called the M2 plus, what they call broad money, which is all the money in the economy plus deposits that we pay to banks as well. Now, the key issue here is that the governor says he's not concerned about the growth of money. He doesn't think that there's too much liquidity in the system to necessitate inflation that much, which is why they kept the rate at 14%. So even though money supply is relatively high, it's not such a big concern according to the monetary authorities. This was what we were told yesterday when we observed the monetary policy meeting. When money grows faster than prices, it could lead to inflation, which is why we are being told. The next big question is debt, right? The key issue with debt is we have domestic debt and then we have foreign debt. Because Ghana's currency has strengthened against the dollar over the past few years, our dollar-denominated debt is not as alarming as our CD debt, right? That's the first issue you should notice. The other issue is that our domestic debt is very high. Don't forget that the government had to make payments for two groups of people who it owes. The DDEP meant that some bond monies had to be paid. Indeed, Finance Minister paid 700 million USD a few days ago to people who had lent us money as part of our DDEP. So our total public debt is about 61 billion. The key issue is the debt to GDP ratio of 45. In CD terms, our debt has increased to about 720 billion cedis. But the domestic component is much higher than the foreign component, 23% versus 21%. So currency appreciation has helped the way our overall debt feels. Because if your currency depreciates, the same amount of dollars requires more cedis to pay. Hope that makes sense. So even though debt to GDP is 45, it's not such a concerning figure. Again, the monetary authorities don't seem too much concerned. I'm bringing all this because my panel will compare the sentiments of the monetary authorities to the sentiments of the fiscal authorities. If they are in sync, we are in good progress. If they are misaligned, we have a problem. Which is why we keep referring to what the governor said yesterday, where he met the media after the MPC meeting. Let's talk about the real economy, where Chonam comes in. The central bank has something called the CIEA, the Composite Index of Economic Activity, which basically picks certain items and decides whether the economy is growing. So it's sort of like a predictor of economic growth. The trend is positive, 13.4%. If you look at the trajectory, it's been going up. It means economic activity is moving up. They also have this very interesting thing they use called the job adverts. They scan all the job adverts and it's trending upwards. You can have more job adverts, but if the people don't qualify, don't get a job. But this figure of 3,519 is higher than what it was a year ago of 2,800 and 800, right? So about 1,500 more job adverts as of June 2026 when you compare it to June 2025. Now, consumer confidence and business confidence are very important. Any figure above 100 is good. So consumer confidence is 102.7, which is good, but the trend is downwards. It means even though the economy has stabilized, consumers are worried, and they will explain why consumers may be worried. So even though things are stable, maybe the macroeconomy has not translated to people's microeconomies, which is why consumer confidence, even though it's higher than 100, it is trending downwards. Business confidence seems to be flat, although you can say, yeah, it's not trending downwards, obviously, but it's not going up a great deal. So he will explain why business confidence is 107.7. All this is from Central Bank, by the way. In terms of what is driving our growth, by the way, overall GDP growth for first quarter was 6.4%. GDP is the total value of the economy, right? The main issue is what is driving the growth. If you look at what the Central Bank gave us, services is where our growth is coming from, and industry because of gold. So when you say industry, it's manufacturing and mining. Industry can be growing, but manufacturing may not be growing. And in our particular case, even though industry is the second driver, a lot of it is good, and I'll explain the gold point much later. Overall GDP growth is 6.4%. Agri, which employs a lot of people, is not growing that much, something that my panel will pick up on. Services is growing as well, 7.1%. Let's quickly look at what's happening outside. Now, in terms of Ghana's, there's something we call a country's current account balance, right? It's basically its trade and finances put together. So how much you get from your exports versus how much you spend on your imports, all right? Now, it appears that when it comes to Ghana, we have a very nice trade surplus. We got about 18 billion from our exports and spent only 9 billion importing. So we have a healthy trade surplus of about 8 billion. The other issue is that our export revenues of 18 billion, about 68% of that came from gold, right? 68%, about 12 billion of that 18 billion is all gold. The next is cocoa, 12%. and then oil 9%, and then the rest 9.8%. So there's a big story there. Gold is driving Ghana's economic growth. Is that good or bad? My panel will answer. The other issue is, I'll ask the tax man, because there's something they do call risk. If you have concentration of your revenues from one particular indicator, is that good or bad? Nelson to comment on that. Right, so gold is 63%, cocoa 12%, oil 9.4%, other 9.8%. This is January to June. So gold is the main item here. Let me jump the gold price issue. So as I said, Ghana ran an $8 billion trade surplus. The other point you need to know, though, that even though we ran a trade surplus, the reserve position of the country reduced from 5.7 months of import cover to 5 months of import cover. So typically when your trade surplus increases, you expect more reserves. But it appears the reserves reduced by about 1.2 billion. We would have to, I think the Bank of Ghana will address that. Panel can talk about that. Maybe some of the dollars were used to finance other things or pay debts. So even though we have a nice trade surplus, our reserve position weakened slightly. All right, so that's another point of interest. So we have a positive trade balance, which is very, very good indeed. And as I said, the reserves, gross international reserves, dropped from March 14.2 billion to 12.9 billion by about 1.2 billion or so. Is that a matter of concern? 5 months of import cover. Don't forget, the government said they want to do something called GAMRAP. They want 15 months of import cover. We don't know what they want to use 15 months of import cover for, but they will explain that. Let's end quickly to what all of this means, right? So these are the big numbers. Revenue, 3.6% of GDP as of March. We look for that figure for June. Overall, primary balance is positive. That's not bad. Inflation, 5.3, still single digit. Debt to GDP, 45%, which is reasonable. If you get to 70, you're in trouble. GDP growth, 6.4. It's not the best, but it's very good. Better than we had 3-4 years last year as well. Trade surplus, 8 billion. Right, so this is a summary of the economy. Who wants to go first on these numbers and what they mean and what it means for Ato? Nelson, I think I'll start with you because you were writing a lot when I was talking.
No, I wasn't writing.
What do you make of this state of the economy as the central bank has given us? And what does that mean for what Ato Forson is doing this afternoon?
All right, thank you very much, Bernard. And once again, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to colleagues and senior colleagues seated. Well, from purely an analytical point of view, comparing where we were coming from to where we are now, we could see that the primary macroeconomic indicators are looking good. And because the primary macroeconomic indicators are looking good, one could just draw a conclusion that, oh, the economy is fine. But as to whether these figures are actually translating into daily lives of Ghanaians is another discussion altogether. But I want to take the rubrics one by one and speak to them. One of the problems that we have had in the past has to do with the debt sustainability. As of December 2022, our debt level rose to about 71% of GDP. Now, when you have such a debt level and your economy is not export-driven, you have a problem. Because number one, when your external debt obligations are due, you have to look for forex to pay them. And if you are not export-driven and you don't have the forex, then you have to rely on your local currency, the Ghana cedi, convert them to the dollars, and then service your external debt. And so debt to GDP is very key. But the IMF and the World Bank actually developed certain metrics that they use in measuring debt sustainability. And once these metrics are looking good, it means that in terms of debt, you are okay. Number one is export to debt service. Why I was saying when your economy is not export driven. For instance, when you take China, Japan, and the rest, even though their debt levels are very high, to the extent that their economy is manufacturing based, they export a lot, no problem. But you take Ghana's economy that is purely agrarian, that we are running the colonial economic model that we don't export much, What it means is that if you don't do a lot of export and your debt to GDP rises, then problem. Then also the debt service ratio to revenue. Now, when you check the 2026 budget, the finance minister actually allocated about 19% of total expenditure for debt service alone, about 57.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now, when you compare that to capital expenditure, is 57.5 billion. So it means that we are using more of our tax money to service our debt. So that is the second indicator. The next indicator is the rate of accumulation. Now, 2025 December, we're doing 44.7% of GDP. You come to March 2026 first quarter, we're still doing 42.9% of GDP. Then you come to June, we are doing 45% of GDP, which means that in terms of our debt to GDP, we are trying to, manage it so as not to cross 50% or 60%. Now, IMF or the World Bank, they don't have any generic benchmark, but I think ECOWAS developed 60% for countries within the sub-region to use as a benchmark, so that when you cross the 60%, percentage, it means that you are getting closer to, debt distress. And then the final one has to do with our primary balance. So in terms of debt management strategy, I would say that we've been able to manage our debt, a bit, in a positive way. And then because to the extent that we have also managed our currency well, the external component of our debt in CD terms, in terms of translation losses too, we've been able to manage it well. Reason why our debt to GDP still remains below 50%, yes, which is good for the government. Now, when you go to the monetary sector, we have also enjoyed some level of stability. I mean, per the figures you gave, gross international reserve $14 billion at the end of March. Now it has reduced to about 12.1 billion, 9 billion. Our external sector, total export 18 billion, total import about 8 billion. So clearly the external sector is also doing very well. Yeah. But you ask a very basic question. You see, the external sector, we don't have control over it. Let me give you some statistics here. I think
you are going deep now. I wanted you to give me your overview of what we've seen before we actually you are answering session B first already.
So I think that.
So I want you generally. Well, say debt is okay. Generally, is the balance position okay?
Yes, generally I think the numbers are looking good, but the worry is whether or not these numbers are translating into daily life, because. I was saying something earlier on TV3. The watches seller at the roadside, inflation was 23.8%. She was giving us 2 ladders for 5 Ghana cedis. Inflation is at 5.3. That same Haja is giving us 2 ladders for, so the behavioral aspect of it is also a bit problematic as to whether price control is the best way to go. That is also a
so you've dealt with debt and you've dealt briefly with
the external sector.
Yes. Judge, from a tax angle, what do you see? We didn't have the June figures, so we limited ourselves to March. I'm sure that's a bit disappointing. You would have wanted the current figures.
No, definitely. I would have wanted a lot current figures, H1 actually.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if government doesn't have the money to spend, I mean, a lot of us are stuck. They're the biggest spenders anyway in the economy, right? Yeah. And the first thing I am very interested in, with the stability, all right, but the very first thing is, does he have the money? Does he have enough money to see this budget through? And it's very important. We've already heard that he's not going to ask for more. Does that mean that he has a few tricks up his sleeve that he can get based on what the projections are? If we take last year, we use the same government's budget. If we take last year, by the first half, they had projected about 45% of total revenue. Now, I guess I'll be comfortable if they are making around that. And that figure should come to about 120 million thereabout on the total revenue and grants. If he's not there, if he's not there, I'll be concerned. I'll wonder, why is he not introducing any new tax handles?
So you want half-year revenue to be at least more than 45% of the end-year target. Yes. So you know he's on course. So I know anything below 45, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. And being a tax consultant, we know that there's always this spike in December. So that is what I'm leaving.
That's why you are giving him that 5. But if he doesn't get to 45, he's in trouble.
Yeah, that
and that translates to what number?
120 billion.
120 billion half year. This is
Yeah.
purely domestic revenue or just tax.
This is domestic revenue,
You're
total
not adding
revenue.
grants.
So and grants.
Okay.
Grants is not a significant portion, but yeah, and grants. Grants is just about, he's projected about 3 billion on grants.
So you want about 120 billion
Yes,
to be comfortable that he's on course.
he's on course. Now, that revenue will probably tell us whether he will be able to spend. There are some costs that he's going to pay anyway. Talk about that. But it brings me to the second thing I'm very interested in. CapEx. There's a lot going on in the country. I mean, some time ago, we all declared that the president actually declared that the country is a construction site, right? Or it can't stay for too long. He needs to spend. If you look at CapEx, the CapEx estimation or budgeted amount was low last year. This year he has to spend. We need government to spend because there are sectors that are struggling because of that. So that is important. And if the money is not there, if I see how the minister is going, he's likely to actually curtail some of these and carrying some of these expenses because they're trying very hard to make sure that they keep the fiscals well.
So that's your second point. Capital expenditure is critical for you.
Yeah.
Domestic mobilization is important for you as well. Anything else you are looking
Then the
out for?
third one, for me, pretty much as a tax consultant, we've been at this severally. How are we mobilizing revenue? What kind of measures? We make the announcements, right? Yeah. And then we'll say administrative, we decide what we want to do. How are we really mobilizing revenue? What are the revenue mobilization measures?
Okay.
If you look, there's a broad plan, and the plan just says broaden base. The big question is always, how are we doing that? We've also experienced, we introduced VAT at the beginning of the year, a new VAT, which is getting mixed reactions. I really want to look at that handle, see whether it's been useful, let me put it that way, and maybe whether there are a lot more benefits going to come out of that introduction is very important. The other part, I'm talking about income taxes, which are always low. Now, minister may not be asking for any revenue, but would he talk about measures to make sure that he's able to shore up tax collection, particularly in those two areas, so that he can get the money that he wants? Those three things are important to me. So revenue, CapEx, and then revenue measures. Is there anything, even administratively, he may not impose a tax, but administratively, is there anything he wants to do?
If I have time, I will show you what Michael Koto did yesterday. We did a program with him. We did a program last week, and he had a page where he analyzed the main tax reforms for 2026. Effective tax burden, the effective VAT burden, COVID levy, SME VAT threshold, NHIL get fund, and what they mean for business. So if we get another round, we'll deal with that. And I want your view and his view on this. But AGI, what do you think the question is for the finance minister this afternoon?
Great, thank you, and good to be on your show again. So I will just begin by commending the government for a more stabilized macroeconomic environment. It's been impressive, at least for the first half of the year. If you look at the AGI owns Afrobarometer indicators, a lot of our members are fairly happy about how stabilized the economy has been. So for us, the big issue now is to hear the finance minister talk about measures that will be put in place to translate this stabilized economy to a more growth environment, mainly focusing on transformation measures. We like to see how the government, through its flagship program, for example, like the 24-hour economy, will incentivize industry to take advantage of the more stabilized economy. So overall, yes, we know it's a good time, but imagine that we just stay at having a stabilized economy without seeing no growth measure. So that's really big on our agenda, and we know it's not going to be simple, because we've seen this in the past where the economy will be stabilized, then we'll go back. For now, we want to grow, and knowing fully well that the only way that the nation can really develop is where industry is more incentivized to create the needed jobs and to do the heavy lifting. So issues around, say, location taxes, I'm talking about the 24 economy. Taxes, reduction of corporate taxes. Of course, we don't expect no new introduction of no new taxes. However, we want to see that some of the taxes are actually reduced.
But the taxes have already been reduced because he changed the VAT from cascading to flat. That is supposed to reduce your cost of goods. He removed the COVID levy already. The SME threshold for VAT has reduced from 750,000 to 2. Actually, has increased. Yes. So a business that does not earn anything above 750,000 is not even charged VAT. So that means that smaller companies will benefit. They've made the NHL Get Fund deductible. So what else do you want?
Okay, so look, industry is grateful for all of this you've talked about. But what I'm saying is that we in industry have specific needs that need to be addressed using taxation. So I isolated the 24 economy program and saying that you need to create specific incentive
for 24 economy for you companies.
Companies. So that's why I mentioned like location tax shift. If you're running shift, what's the benefits? I mean, what are the incentives? Reduce corporate tax, but also talking about taxes. Take excise duty levies, for example. If you take fruit juice, beverages, we have to pay about 20%. That's really too high. Excise duty is normally imposed on luxury products and all harmful, and so on. But beverages, the fruit juice are things all of us consume. Bottled water, about 17%. And we're the only country in the sub-region, introducing this type of taxes. So our view is that government should look at that, in this particular budget, especially that we have to deal with competing with imported products, imported bottled water, imported fruit juice, and so on. And then we're asking for zero VAT rates on diapers, locally manufactured diapers, because currently we are competing heavily with imported diapers. So these are some of the things.
So you are looking for further tax reductions in the media budget?
Yes, it's possible. It is possible. It is possible because, and these are specific needs. I mentioned like bottled water. Why are you going
so these are not broad-based, but
yes, very specific. Bottled water. I mentioned, fruit juice, diapers and things like that.
But what if a fruit juice tells you that impose the tax on imported fruit juice, but give us the tax relief as local manufacturers? Is that
would they do that? I mean, if they would do that,
maybe
that's
that
great.
Because by the way, are the taxes applied across whether they are locally manufactured or?
Yes, so like the excise duties are across board.
Across board.
Yes, but we are saying locally manufactured ones should be given special.
But maintain it on imported. To give you that, because then if I want to set up a factory to manufacture fruit juice, then I'll be minded to do that because I know that I can compete against the foreign product.
Thank you. That's why the imported one seems to be doing well in the market compared to the locally produced one.
The tax burden is strong on the local ones.
Yes. And we've got installed capacity to supply to the entire West Africa. Why are you not giving industry the incentive to make sure that we maximize our production capacities?
Wonderful. Thank you. Jennifer, you are from civil society budget. You do budget analysis, you want open budgeting, and you translate the budget into various forms. So I'm sure you are just happy that he's even doing the budget because you are the fact that even if he's going to ask for more money, the fact that he's presenting a budget and is live on TV is part of what you call for.
Yes.
Be that as it may, what is civil society like yours looking out for in this particular budget?
Thank you, Bernard. Good afternoon to everyone. So, first of all, let me tell you that if you check the quarter one from January to March fiscal data that is on the Ministry of Finance website, it means that we don't have anything on grants. So the grant part was actually zero.
Okay.
So for us, for us to have a holistic analysis of what we've done so far and how we have performed, like all my colleagues here, we would have wanted to see the whole data so that when you are talking, you know what you are talking about and not just some portions of it. For instance, we know some of the debt has been paid off and all that. If we could have seen what it looks like now, it would have given us a better understanding of what where we are currently, and if we are in a comfortable lead.
So you say we don't even know
no,
if
we are not
for
too
Q1
sure. Yes.
any grants came in.
No, no grant came in per that data.
Per the data they put
Yes,
out. Okay,
there's
the
no
fiscal
grants.
data for 2026, but this is for March, up to March.
Up to March, but we don't know whether after March monies had come in or not.
Okay.
So that's one part. Another part that when you were presenting the overview of the whole economy and I saw the Agric 4.0, I was not surprised. And my reason being that for our work that we analyze budget, one of the key things we also do is to look at all the subnational level, the MMDA budget. And you realize that aside that 2026 budget had a lot for the agric sector, but that's national. If you go to the MMDA budget and you check, the amount they are allocating for agric is like an afterthought. It's not as if it is intentionally programmed into the budget that they have. And what we have analyzed so far, it's almost cut across everywhere. And it actually hurts when you see that this economy, we depend so much on the agric sector. And even taking into consideration what even happened to women who had to go all the way to Burkina Faso to go and get tomato for our system and the kind of things that they met, when we actually have arable lands in the country that can do that. So if we are really going to set up as a people, we should set up and really put more money in the agric sector as it is, which would also help reduce the food inflation as we see it. For me, Big Push is my biggest. As I'm here today, I'm here to talk about Big Push. Okay. That's my agenda for today, because a lot of money is going to Big Push.
Okay.
Aside what the government himself committed, there's other part that is coming from private financing as well. And looking at oil revenue, extractive revenue, almost every kind of revenue is being pushed as the one of the major funding source for Big Push. It's a very big deal for me. So far, we are not really sure about the status of the project, what is really happening, looking into the fact that this is a country where if we don't even have clear timelines as to when these projects will complete, are we going to have more abandoned projects? Because we know if another government comes, there's a likelihood that these things will not be continued.
So you want to see a status report on the key Big Push projects?
Yes, not key, all the ones that has been rolled out so far.
They are mostly roads and bridges,
yes,
and then power.
Yes, yes.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
So you want to hear from him?
From him on that.
Those three things.
Yes, and we also want a disaggregated data, because the funding sources are from different places. So how do we really track? How do we know that the petroleum revenue that came in was this amount? But aside the amount itself, how much, what project are we using on? So that if I am tracking from the petroleum revenue side, I'll know where I'm going to locate this project. If I am using the extractive mineral revenue itself, then that one too, I know which projects are doing that. If it's private financing and government, which of the projects, so that we can have a holistic overview of the
interesting
projects.
point. I think the previous government said they will use some of our oil money for free SHS.
Yes.
3 days ago, the education minister held a press conference where he said they had gone for a $300 million loan from the World Bank to phase out double track. And that was going to be used for education infrastructure. So you want that level of granularity to know if you are spending $300 million from World Bank then what does that mean for the original idea of funding free SHS from oil revenues, that type of thing.
Yes.
Right, that's an interesting. But why is it important to be that detailed in your tracking?
It's important because it's our money. It's Ghana money, it's tax money. And every single penny that is spent is coming from either my pockets, Chonam's pockets, Nelson's pockets, my Mr. Taxman's pockets, my senior taxman's pockets. Every one of us are paying. So if we are paying, there's a duty to us that we need to know.
Okay.
And it also helps in tracking transparency. It helps in accountability. And it also helps in data.
Wonderful.
If you have correct data, in future when you are planning, you're able to plan well. So that's why we need
Thank you,
that.
Jennifer. This is a special broadcast ahead of the presentation of the 2026 midterm budget by Finance Minister Cassiel Ato Forson. We are going to bring you live pictures from Parliament, not because we want to cross over fully, but I want to give you a sense of what's happening there. The First Deputy Speaker is in the seat, and we notice submissions are being made. So if the team can just give us a view of what's happening so that we can also gauge the time that Ato Forson is going to come in. Usually the budget will be the last item for the day. So if you look at the order paper, you can tell if the 2 o'clock will work or not. So our parliamentary correspondent may want to also join us to give us a sense. And typically you would have the speaker himself be in the seat for the budget because it's a big occasion. So to the extent that we have the First Deputy Bernard Ahiafo in the seat, and there seems to be a back and forth going on, they are not yet at budget. So Fred, if you can get somebody to explain to us what's going on, what are they doing now? Finance Minister is set to present the budget, but we don't know, are they discussing money? Are they discussing football? We want to know so that we can give listeners and viewers a sense of what's going on. But this is a live program here on Channel 1 Television and 97.3 CDFM.
Thank you.
Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, he can do so.
Very well, Minister for Rules.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the College of Health, Nalerigu, for the year ended 31st December 2025.
Members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the committee responsible for education for consideration and reports. Item numbered 7E. And we are taking all together by Minister for Local Government, Chieftaincy, and Religious Affairs. So we are taking the I from SXV.
Mr. Speaker, the local government minister is not available.
So you notice papers are being laid, reports of various committees being laid. The MP for Ada, Comfort Kujo Gansa, presenting one of those papers, and the minority deputy chief whip MP for Tolon engaging in some discourse. You notice the minority are in black as well, suggesting that they are going to be mourning the budget. So they are all in black. We don't know whether it's because of other issues or whether it's economic issues, but we are here with 4 of the very best. We have Jij Fiajo, who is the partner for tax for PricewaterhouseCoopers. We call them one of the big 4 accounting firms in the world. And we also have Nelson Kujo Kwagbeji, who's a financial analyst. And then we have Chonam Akpelo, Great Akrache, AGI, and then Jennifer Moffat, Country Manager, Budget Ghana. So let me do my next round. Nelson, you were on a roll. You spoke about debt, you analyzed it. You spoke about external sector. You were going to talk about the balance, the primary balance, that I didn't give you the chance. What else are you looking out for in this budget?
Well, when the budget was presented initially, the major concern for those of us in industry, financial markets, has to do with whether the finance minister, in coordination and conjunction with the governor of Bank of Ghana, will be sustaining the gains that we have chalked into the future. And don't forget that at the time the budget was presented, we were on the verge of exiting from the IMF. And that was a major concern to those of us in the market players. But surprisingly, the government decided to go under the Policy Coordinating Instrument Program, the PCI program. And for us, we see the PCI as a signaling effect to the investor community that we are not ready to go back to where we were coming from, because it goes a long way to give certain level of policy credibility and also credibility to the policy makers, because the intention is that we still want to maintain and sustain the gains that we have made. And so the PCI itself, to me, is an instrument or a framework that will compel the government, because it's as if the headmaster is not in town, but the assistant headmaster is watching you. And so when the assistant headmaster academic is also there, you will find it difficult to deviate from, your core mandate. And so for me, I really want to commend the government for that particular initiative.
Nelson, do you think the PCI could also be, do you think we agree to the PCI because maybe we want better ratings for possible re-entry into the market? I say this because when this government took over, essentially our credit rating was junk status, and then it became, I think, CC something. I think we are triple B minus or something. We are not even at BB.
We are currently at B with a positive outlook.
Good. So my point is, your credit rating affects the interest you pay when you go to the capital market.
Yes.
So could it be that they took PCI, which we have a review in September, because they are hoping that if we clear September and ratings improve, because he's raising questions about financing, JIT says where we're going to get the money from. Talk to me about how that works.
Okay, so I think the PCI is just a critical enabler for re-entry into the international capital market. There are two things here. Government paid the third tranche of the Eurobond ahead of schedule, signaling effect.
Good.
Confidence
to say that we paid before time.
Exactly.
We are not broke.
We don't have any problem. And since they came, they have also demonstrated that commitment. I don't think they've defaulted on any of their commitment when they fall due. And so the PCI was just a kind of an enabler to re-enter the international capital market. Don't forget that $300 million just recently. Concessionary. And then also, I also think that, as I did indicate earlier, it's a kind of a surveillance framework that even though we are out of the ECF, it's as if we are still with the IMF. And so let's maintain this.
To give you some policy credibility.
Exact policy credibility. And so clearly that is a very good initiative, because this is the first time in the history of Ghana that we have exited the IMF and we decide to maintain such an instrument as a way of, checking our, performance as far as our economic issues are concerned. So that we need to give that credit to the government. So it's a signaling effect that we are not ready to, go back to where we're coming from. Now, again, another area I want to comment on has to do with the two offices that were established at the Finance Ministry, the Value for Money Office and the Fiscal Council. You see, when there is too much of fiscal mismanagement, what it happens is that it creates problem for you as a country, because as we've been saying, our economy is largely informal. We've not been able to rake in the needed tax revenue. And so if you don't have the needed tax revenue and you are being fiscally imprudent, what it means is that you are creating problem for yourself. And so the creation of the Value for Money Office, that will check the effectiveness, the efficiency and the economy of procurement processes in itself is a plus to the government, because another challenge that we've had in the past is inflated contract. And so if you don't have anybody telling you that no, this thing is worth 1 Ghana cedi, not 1 cedi 20 pesos, then it means that you have a problem. Again, the Fiscal Council, which is supposed to serve as a strategic oversight office over government expenditure, will also go a long way. So in my opinion, these are some of the innovative, policies that has been introduced at the Finance Ministry, just to make sure that we don't go back to where we were coming from. Then finally, I want to talk about the reserve accumulation that we mentioned earlier. You see, I have done a bit of research, and I realized that most of us, we tie the stability of a country's currency to the quantum of reserve that the country accumulates. Now, Bernard, it will interest you to know that the quantum of reserve that you accumulate only support the stability of your cedi up to even less than 10%. There are other policy measures that comes into interplay to actually support the stability of your currency. Number one has to do with monetary policy. If your monetary policy is not that strong or tight, you have a problem with your currency stability. Number two, central bank's liquidity management. If central bank does not manage its liquidity very well, even in terms of its FX intermediation, you have a problem. Then market confidence is also key. Because if investors don't have confidence in your market, you have a problem with your currency, and then fiscal prudence. Because if you are not fiscally prudent, it means you are spending left, right, center. You have a problem regarding your currency. And so the government's, ability to legislate, I will call it a piece that can force subsequent governments to actually intentionally and organically build our reserve is key. That is the Ghana Accelerated Reserve Accumulation Program that you mentioned.
GAMRAP.
In the past, what happened is that our reserves are always rented. We go to the IMF, we borrow, we show up the reserve, we make payment, the reserve comes down, CD depreciate. But with this GAMRAP that the government has brought now, it will make our reserve accumulation organic. It will not be as if we are going to rent the reserve. Once payment is done, then it falls down. You just mentioned that the reserve actually reduced by 1.2 billion. And most of these variables too is tied to what happens elsewhere. Because if geopolitical tensions in the Middle East keeps on going, it means that government need more efforts to actually, give to the petroleum importers. Is it the BDCs to import into the country? And that may partly also affect your reserve. And so the fact that the reserve has shot down from 14.9 to about 12.9 does not necessarily mean that our CD will depreciate. I mean, there are also other factors that comes into interplay to actually support the stability of a currency.
Very comprehensive, Nelson. Let me cross over briefly to Parliament and hear from Ayikwe, Ni Ayikwe Okai, who is our parliamentary correspondent, to give us a sense of what's happening on the floor and what it means and when we should expect the finance minister, because it's actually 2:00. So, Ni Ayikwe, thanks for joining us on this special broadcast. We see people talking. Some are in black, some are in other colors. Where is the finance minister? Why is the budget not being read as it is 2:00?
Well, Bernard, so today, as we all know, the Finance Minister, Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson, is expected in the House to present before Parliament the 2026 mid-year budget review. However, he is not yet in the House. I haven't cited him in the House yet, but proceedings have begun. Some parliamentary business is ongoing. We've seen the Deputy Finance Minister, Thomas Nyako Ampim, lay before the House some bills. And key amongst these bills is the Excise Bill 2026, which seeks to enable the government to reap the benefits of duties on wines and spirits. And also, the Ghana Cocoa Board Bill 2026 has also been laid before the House by the Deputy Finance Minister, Thomas Nyako Ampim, which also seeks to enable the cultivation and also the production of cocoa to add value to it before it is exported. And then also key amongst these bills is the Public Procurement Authority Amendment Bill 2026, which the government also seeks to tighten the use of sole sourcing in public procurement. So these are some of the key activities that have gone by on the floor of Parliament as I speak to you now. But we are still waiting for the Finance Minister to come before the House to present the 2026 mid-year budget, which we surely believe that it will take place. So as it stands, business activity, parliamentary business for that matter, is taking place on the floor. The minority members have been in black since Chairman Wuntumi, or the NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman Bernard Nchubu was incarcerated by the court for his involvement in illegal mining activities. Since that day, the minority caucus have always been clad in black attire before the House, just in solidarity with the incarceration of Chairman Wuntumi.
I wanted you to mention again the bills that were laid. You did mention that Deputy Finance Minister laid a number of bills. I didn't get that correctly. Did you say an excise bill?
So
Explain it to me. Yeah.
Excise Bill 2026. Exactly, Excise Bill 2026. So the government is seeking to amend the excise duty bill to enable the government to be able to reap the benefits of the duties on wines and spirits in particular, because the Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako raised concerns that although it was estimated that about 5 billion Ghana cedis could be accrued from the duties on spirits and wines within the within the years of 2023 and 2025, what was realized was only 1 billion Ghana cedis. So government is falling short of revenue in that regard. So that is why we've seen the Excise Bill 2026 laid before Parliament this morning by the Deputy Finance Minister to ensure that government is able to generate enough revenue in that regard.
I'll be happy if you can smuggle a copy.
And then we also have...
I'll be happy if you can get us a copy, because what I am getting is that the bill will impose stricter duty on imported spirits and liquors, but seeks to abolish excise duty on locally produced fruit juice. So I don't know if Ampim went into the details, but if you can get the details for us later on, I'll be very, very happy, because we need clarity, because there are issues with locally produced fruit juice and there are issues with imported spirits and wines, which we know the Ministry of Finance has been complaining about. So get the details for us. You also spoke about a procurement bill. Who is laying that paper, and what's the procurement bill about?
So with regard to the excise duty bill, when the Deputy Finance Minister laid that particular legislation before the House, he at the first reading, he gave us that preliminary statement to give us a fair idea of what the bill is about. But we are yet to get the nitty-gritty of what exactly it entails. So we'll try and then get that. Once it is referred to the committee, the Finance Committee, we will get copies of that report and then get real details of what exactly it entails. Now, to the Public Procurement Authority Amendment Bill, over the period, we've had concerns about the use of sole sourcing in public procurement, especially when it had to do with the Big Push project. On that background, we have had the Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako lay before Parliament this morning the Public Procurement Authority Amendment Bill 2026, which is seeking to tighten the use of sole sourcing, not necessarily abolish it, but then to tighten it, to make it very, uncomfortable, for want of a better expression, for any government appointee to resort to sole sourcing, to rather encourage competitive tendering. And in encouraging the use of competitive tendering, what the government is also saying is that mostly that has a long period. The process is a long period, and they are seeking to ensure that this period that government appointees are made to use competitive tendering, the period is also shortened. Bernard.
So from all indications, when do you expect Mr. Forson to come? You are an experienced parliamentary correspondent. You've seen the order paper. Papers are being laid. It's 7 minutes past 2. Will proceedings continue for another hour before he comes? I'm putting you on the spot. Or you're thinking that if you look at the order paper, he should be with us in less than 30 minutes?
Well, for the order paper, there are quite a number of activities on the order paper, which if the House would decide to continue with proceedings, they could go ahead and do that. But as it stands now, the key focus is on the Finance Minister, Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson, whom the House is waiting to appear. We are believing that any moment from now, once sitting has begun, any moment from now, the Finance Minister could appear before the House to present the 2026 mid-year budget review. If the House also insists that it would want to, wait until the Finance Minister is in, it could as well also call for a suspension of proceedings until the Finance Minister appears, and then the House would reconvene.
All right, we'll be coming back to you. Thank you for your report, Ni Aikwe Okain. This is a special broadcast live on 97.3 CDFM Channel 1 television. The budget or mid-term budget for 2026 is to be presented. We got a clue there, didn't we, Dij? Because as journalists, we've been digging around the Ministry of Finance, and we know that the government is concerned about imported spirits and liquor, that they don't pay they are taking advantage of the customs regime. So they want to tighten the duties on imported spirits and liquor. But we also know that Chonam and Co have complained about the duty on locally produced juice. So even though I haven't seen the full report, to hear that Deputy Minister has laid a paper, clearly something is going on there. So I don't know what would you expect there, because he says he's not going to ask for any more money.
Yeah.
But clearly there are things he can do within certain enclaves to get more money, right?
Yeah. So excise duty happens to be one of those special taxes, maybe also because of the special area it focuses on, and usually the manufacturing zone. But what has happened over the years is that we've had to, okay, let me take a step back. First of all, the legal reforms around taxes have always been in the works. In fact, all of our taxes are about 10 years old or a little more than that. And usually around that time, everybody is seeking to do reviews. But when it comes to excise particularly, you will find that one agenda point is always raise revenue. That's one. It doesn't give a lot, but it's become an easy way to actually, you can clearly identify and impose revenue. The second one is that because of the way it is designed, on one breath ad valorem, on one breath specific, it gets the specific rate particularly becomes so low, and over time, you don't raise the revenue that you want to raise anymore. So one of the plans that has always been in the works is how to make sure that there is some kind of auto adjustment even on the specifics. It is important because you want to sustain the revenue that you raise. So there have been talks about hybrid approaches. But what is clear is we won't stop ad valorem, we won't stop specific. It will continue that way. It gives government some control, but they want some auto review. The third one is you either want to stop something or you want to encourage something. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. It's all around revenue mobilization. But if there's a particular behavior you want to stop, then you impose more excise taxes. We have examples of those. If there are others you want to promote or encourage, so for instance, like we heard, if you think about water, you think about fruit juices and all of that, particularly locally, and you want to encourage your local industries, you go easy on them. Now, imports over the years have had an advantage over the
locally manufactured products.
They've always had an advantage. They've taken a number of steps to make sure that they also pay excise duty, but sometimes the coverage is just not enough, right? So government has always been watching that space, GRA particularly, and seeking very much to make sure that if everyone has to pay, first of all, everyone pays. If I want to encourage anyone, the preference would be to encourage the locals as opposed to the foreign companies, because the imports naturally have an advantage. They come at a lower prices, they're able to penetrate and all of that. So why it's not already an even playing field? So it's not a total surprise to hear that excise has been presented. In fact, we're actually hoping that it would have come earlier.
Good.
Because the laws are even old. That together with other reforms that he had promised in the 2026 budget when he read it in November. So,
which is probably why they want to lay it before he reads the budget.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to make it a promise.
And I want to see it as well, to actually see what are they encouraging, or is it all revenue mobilization? He needs the money too. So
I suspect there has to be a balance, AGI, Chairman, because imported, at least from what my reporter said, there will definitely be a tightening of the regime on imported wines and spirits. But he didn't say anything about locally produced beverages. And you've been very specific that you want a relief on that side.
Yeah, for local manufacturers. Because really, the challenge has been to have to compete every day with imported products. It's really a big deal for our people, especially for companies that have the capacity to produce and supply the entire country and even export. think about it. Why do you need to incentivize importation of those products that we can produce? So really, that's our issue. But that's one thing that's missing. That's about smuggling.
Yeah.
So you can put in all the measures we can, but the issue around smuggling is so serious. I mean, take the textiles industry for example. Over 70% of the product you see around that area are substandard and all smuggled and so on and so forth. It's so bad. And so you introduce a tax, but the tax is not effective because
you can't enforce it.
Yes.
Indeed, there was a report recently about informal trade with our neighbors, and a lot of goods are coming into Ghana informally. They didn't indicate, this statistical service, they didn't indicate whether informality meant that no taxes were paid. But they did say that a lot of the goods were coming in through Aboboya and trucks, and they tracked it for almost 3 months. So it will be interesting to see what that means and the type of things. For example, oil, cooking oil was coming in droves through the Togo border.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And they said it's informal. I don't know what that, when they say it's informal, it means that they don't pay tax. And they didn't use the word smuggling too. They just said this is informal trade. A very important report released as well. So maybe that could also be informing why they want to tighten some of the regimes there. Let me take Jennifer's comment quickly, because I am told the minister is now within the precincts of parliament. So the deputy speaker has also left the seat. That suggests that Mr. Speaker would assume his seat. So we should be expecting the House to resume discourse very shortly. From what I see, my reporter tells me Ato Forson is now in parliament.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Of course, typically, if this were the main budget, the House would have been much fuller. You probably expect diplomatic corps members, different agencies of state to be there. The gallery looks pretty empty because this is not such a big budget. It's just a revision of a few things. He's not asking for any more money.
Not asking for money.
So people are not interested. So it's not only the media who wants controversy, even the public. If there's no controversy, they are not going.
No.
So don't blame the media for being the ones interested in controversy. Jennifer, any more thoughts around what you expect Mr. Forson to do as we wait for his appearance?
I think I will just touch on the PPA amendment, and it's interesting. So for me, if it's been amended because of sole sourcing, then what's the use of spending so much money on the GANEPs? The GANEPs is supposed to control or make sure that all procurement is very, very transparent. But if we are not enforcing the usage of GANEPs and then GIFMES, then it is asked who is we have the issue, and not necessarily amending or introducing new laws. So I want to know specific provisions that are going to be amended, and then how in amending those ones we are making sure that GIFMES and GANEPs are going to be the primary source of either procuring and then making payments for government related products, goods, services, whatever it is that they are doing. Because if you check the subnational, the MMDs, majority do not use it. And even in our quest around the big push, we went there typing to see if there is any of those projects, identified projects on the GANEPs, and it's not. So what exactly are we amending if GANEPs is there to ensure that some of these things
I wanted to take you up. This Ministry of Finance seems to be playing a class prefect role among the ministries. They announced that no contract should be signed if it has financial implications for the economy without their approval. They've enforced this. Donor-funded projects for first quarter, particularly from the World Bank desk, all had to be halted for the finance ministry to review everything. I recall people complaining that monies meant for social spending were not coming because finance ministry had put a freeze on that. Now they want to do an amendment of procurement. Maybe we should be crediting them, and you mentioned value for money office as well. We should be crediting them for wanting to be more prudent, in the sense that, because we've always said that if there's one ministry that can avoid wastage across board, is the finance ministry. So they seem to have taken the role of we are not going to allow any money to be wasted under our tenure. So whilst I accept your point that we have GANEPs and GIFMIs, maybe we should be happy that the ministry is looking to tighten spending and cut wastage with all the various things it's trying to do with because we know that government agencies like spending and on unnecessary things. For example, people have a project from a donor, they used to buy Pajero and things. Okay, so if the Ministry of Finance says, look, we want to be sure that, and don't forget that for all these donor monies, there's counterpart funding that the government has to pay.
Yes.
So even if you are giving me, in fact, the 300 million that we are getting from the World Bank, there's counterpart funding about 25 million that we have to pay. And so we should actually be encouraging the Ministry of Finance to say, look,
sure,
be more scrupulous in checking these things.
This government itself has been very, very prudent in spending. I think we can all agree to that.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, it will be like, if I don't see the use, I'm not going to release the money until I see the use. That's what the approach has been for the past 1.5 years. Half years. But what I'm trying to say here is we already have some systems in place. We already have the checks in place. So if we are amending the PPA Act, maybe are we amending to ensure that the GANEPs and GIFMIs are there? Like maybe you've written it there so that we can enforce it. Because we even have the Public Financial Management Act to check some of all these things. Yet we were in a place where we spent and our debt to GDP ratio, like Nestle will tell you, was skyrocketing and we were all like choking in the economy. So amendment is good. We want to see GANEPs and GIFMIs written boldly in that document so that if enforcement will happen, then it should happen very well.
It's 21 minutes past the hour of 2. This is a live preview of the midterm budget represented by Minister of Finance Cassiel Ato Forson. We have a couple of reports my team members put together. I don't know if the team has them. Nilate did a quick report where he summarized what was done in the 2026 budget and then looked forward to what will happen today. So let's take those reports as we get ready for Cassiel Ato Forson's presentation.
6 months into the fiscal year, the economy appears broadly on track. Inflation has declined sharply to 5.3%, comfortably below government's target range of 8 plus or minus 2%. The 2026 budget targets real GDP growth of at least 4.8%, non-oil growth of 4.9%, a budget deficit of 2% of GDP, and a primary fiscal surplus of 1.5%, while maintaining international reserves equivalent to at least 3 months of import cover. Most of these targets have been outperformed despite recent upward pressures. Ghana's transition from an IMF-supported program to the policy coordination instrument is expected to reinforce policy credibility, with fiscal discipline and structural reforms remaining key to sustaining investor confidence. But is the economy performing in line with expectations, and what policy signals should businesses and investors watch for in the second half of the year? Finance analyst Nelson Kuju-Kwagbeji has some answers.
We expect the economy to remain relatively stable. Again, as a result of the coordinated effort between the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana, we expect, the economy to grow relatively higher than what has been projected in the budget. And so our expectation is that all these variables will factor into the performance of the economy, most especially the financial sector.
However, maintaining these gains will require continued expenditure discipline and enhanced domestic revenue mobilization. Therefore, what are the risks?
These exogenous factors, we don't have control over them. To the extent that the war continues unabated, we expect pump prices to increase. However, I think the tension in the Middle East is easing gradually, and we expect that to reflect at the pump. Again, I think the Bank of Ghana has accumulated a lot of reserve that can support the stability of the Ghana cedi.
The mid-year budget review will also focus on whether the finance minister revises key macroeconomic projections, announces adjustments to expenditure allocations, or provides updates on flagship programs. there are strong indications that no new taxes will be introduced. Thursday's presentation provides the clearest assessment yet of Ghana's economic performance in 2026 and whether the country remains on course to meet its fiscal, inflation, and growth targets of the year.
The government faced intermittent power outages earlier this year, renewing concerns about the stability of the power sector and challenges confronting the industry. For energy sector players such as Executive Director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, Benjamin Nsia, government has yet to achieve some of the key targets outlined in the 2026 budget.
As we speak, it is not started, which is the 1,200 thermal infrastructure has not started. The government also mentioned that they were going to construct the GPP2. As we speak, it has not started.
Benjamin Nsia is therefore expecting government to use the mid-year budget review to address these gaps and put the energy sector back on track.
Targets have not been achieved, and we need to have a review of that in the mid-year budget, indicating challenges associated with fiscal implementation or allocation of resources to complete these targets.
Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amoy, is also calling on government to ring-fence funds for the payment of independent power producers. He argues that ensuring timely payment to IPPs is critical to maintaining stable power generation and preventing a recurrence of supply disruptions that could affect households, businesses, and economic activity.
I would urge the Finance Minister to also continue to provide the timely interventions and payment to the IPPs.
Duncan Amoy is also pressing government to reduce the 1 cedi levy, which adds to the cost of petroleum products at a time when consumers and businesses are already facing pressure from rising fuel prices.
Up to a point, we should be able to ease down on it and tell the Ghanaian that we had a crisis situation. We've been able to stabilize that. Maybe we can reduce it to 50 pesos at some point, right? So that it can still be able to generate something to contribute to greater stability of the power sector.
The mid-year budget review comes amid renewed geopolitical tensions that have pushed global crude oil prices higher, with the impact already feeding into Ghana's ex-pump fuel prices. Higher fuel prices could increase transportation and production costs, adding further pressure on businesses and the prices of goods and services. Energy sector players, including Benjamin Nsia, therefore believe the government must introduce measures to cushion consumers and businesses from the impact of rising fuel prices.
In terms of intervention, I think that it is due, and it's very critical that that is also announced, because the expectation is that all that things being equal, the price of diesel is likely going to cross 20 Ghana cedis per litre come next window.
For Duncan Amoy, measures ought to be put in place to embark on a strategic reserve program amid geopolitical tensions.
There's quite a lot of monies in the petroleum sector, particularly. We talk of the UPPF normally. We would expect that some amount of these revenues would be channeled towards the strategic reserve program.
One of the key programs is the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development initiative, which has moved from policy to implementation following the passage of the 24-hour Economy Authority Act in February this year. Government says 268 fuel stations and 33 manufacturing companies are currently operating under the initiative, while the investment pipeline has grown to $11.5 billion. Presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy program, Gusitano, says several flagship projects are expected to generate thousands of jobs.
So what is the work that we have done so far? At Buipe, we are co-developing up to 1.5 gigawatts of solar-backed power and up to 6 hours of battery storage, BESS. The joint development agreement was signed on 10th of April this year, and construction of the first 100 megawatts will begin next month.
Beyond these investments, many Ghanaians will also be looking for an update on the proposed 24-hour markets. one of the program's key promises. Another flagship initiative expected to feature prominently in the mid-year budget review is the Big Push Infrastructure Program. Parliament has approved nearly 50 billion cedis for the multi-year initiative. The Women's Development Bank is another major policy commitment investors and businesses will be watching closely. As of July 9, Finance Minister said the bank is expected to become operational before the end of 2026.
We have paid 400 million Ghana cedis, being the capitalization amount, to an escrow account at the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is now beginning the process to assess the bank so that they can grant license for its operationalization. We will make sure that bank is operationalized by the end of the year.
Agriculture is also expected to come under scrutiny as questions remain over the pace of funding for key interventions. The Ministry of Finance says it has released 1.67 billion cedis, representing 85% of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture's 2026 allocation, including 244.9 million cedis for the Nkukwo Nketenkete Poultry Program. However, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture disputes that figure, maintaining that the actual releases received as of May 29 amounted to 244.3 million cedis, setting up a key issue that could be clarified during the mid-year budget review. One of the key programs is
So it's 2:31 on 97.3 CTFM and here on Channel 1 Television. We're still bringing you a live preview of the budget statement. We don't want to call it a supplementary budget because he's not asking for any more money, but basically the midterm budget review statement by Minister of Finance Cassiel Ato Forson. Speaker Alban Babin just took his seat, having replaced the first Deputy Speaker Bernard Ahiafo. That suggests to us that the real business or the full business of the day is about to begin. We'll cross over shortly to the House to hear from our correspondent, after which I'm sure the Minister of Finance will be presenting his budget. My panel is Rich Chonam Clens Akpelo, is the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the Association of Ghana Industries. Jennifer Moffat is the Country Manager for Budget Ghana. Nelson Kujo Kwagbeji is a financial analyst, and TJ Fiajo is partner for tax for PricewaterhouseCoopers. All waiting with bated breath for Finance Minister's budget. When budgets are read in times where there's no controversy, they may be boring, but that's good because I recall there are times we read budget and we had just done DDEP and there were clamors for Finance Minister to be sacked. There was even one budget read by the majority leader at the time, Che Mensa. Those were crazy times, all right? But sometimes we should appreciate stability. We don't need headlines.
Calmness.
Maybe this is a calm time. He isn't asking for any new money, so there's no new excitement. But I don't think people have the appetite to pay any new taxes. Because even though the economy has stabilized, as one of you was saying, on the market, people still say things are, as you can see from consumer confidence, people are worried that they are not seeing the money. Nelson, I don't know what you think. What's going on? Is it the banks who are keeping the money or where is the money?
Well, I think that to the extent that credit has expanded by well over 41% to private sector, government continues to register over subscription in the money market, clearly shows that there is a lot of liquidity in the system. So as for money is in the system. Just recently, Bank of Ghana has to absorb a lot more of cash within the system. I am attributing that generally to the behavioral aspect of it. I mean, typical Ghanaian attitude. Well, even if the price has reduced, some of us will still continue to sell at the old price. And so we need a lot of education. We need a lot of conscientization. We need a lot of sensitization on those issues so that because normally when the economy stabilizes, we expect the flow of prices to go along. But in Ghana, it's actually the opposite. Prices, the economy, the variables will stabilize, but prices will keep on, being up there. I don't remember the last time that the universities will say, okay, now macroeconomic fundamentals are good, so let's reduce school fees.
That's why we need to study behavioral economics. We're crossing over now to the speaker who's inviting Minister of Finance to deliver his address.
Yes, honorable members, please, I recognize the Deputy Minority Whip. He's on his feet. Let me give him the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with the application made by the majority leader, he said item 6, statement. And Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the attention of the maker of this statement to Order 91.2. Mr. Speaker, Order 91.2 states that a minister of state may make a statement of government policy, and the statement shall be limited to facts which are necessary to be made known to the House, and not contain matters that are likely, and must not contain statements that are likely to provoke debate. Mr. Speaker, I'm drawing the minister's attention because you must limit yourself to 91.2a, that you should limit it to facts. You should not say anything that will provoke debate. Mr. Speaker, because the finance minister, upon entering the chamber, is showing a particular brown bag, of which we don't know what is contained in the brown bag. And minister, don't come and ask of any money, because we will not give you 1 kobo. We won't give you any 1 kobo, Mr. Speaker. So if the minister is not limiting himself to facts, we will draw your attention and will raise the necessary issues with regards to the statement that. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and he should comply by that.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is important that in this House we continuously educate ourselves. I do agree that it is a statement, and most statements by ministers are governed by Order 91. But you have forgotten that this House passed the Public Financial Management Act. And the Public Financial Management Act is the legislation that has directed that the minister comes to this House to present a mid-year review. And in that act, Section 28, it itemizes the things that he must come and account for. Some of those may be contentious. Some of those may provoke debate. But we passed a law and said he must come and present on all those matters. So you cannot restrict him to only the provisions of Order 91. So go and read the Public Financial Management Act and be guided by that one.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, we're happy the Finance Minister is here. My main concern is that on the government side, I see a lot of empty seats. I'm in opposition. Mr. Speaker, this tells us how government side takes this budget. Mr. Speaker, all ministers are supposed to be here. Mr. Speaker, I can count the number of cabinet ministers here. Mr. Speaker, cabinet ministers are supposed to be here and listen to the finance minister. But Mr. Speaker, it's okay. We are here to listen to him. If they have decided not to come in their numbers, it's fine. We have picked the signal. But the leader of government business has given an indication. So some of the facts will be contentious. We hope that the finance minister will record and address this house on the matters arising out of the Nkukon Ketenkete, which according to the Greek minister, the beneficiaries are eating. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter we hope you would address.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, when the Akoko Nketekete project started and they were distributing the day-old chicks, Honorable Afenyomakin failed to take advantage, and so he didn't go for some of the day-old chicks. Others went and took the day-old chicks. Now they have matured, and they are now Akoko and Cassiel. And when they prepare their light soup and take, he's worried and complaining all over the place. Please, the whole object of Akoko and Kitikiti is so that they will mature into big beds, and then they will be sold and they will be utilized for light soup. So if they are being utilized for light soup, now what is your problem? What is your problem? Mr. Speaker, I think on this very light note, I want to urge colleagues, let's allow the process to continue.
Yes, honorable members, on your behalf, I invite the Minister of Finance to make the statement.
Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama, I have the humble duty to present the media fiscal policy review of the 2026 budget and economic policy of government. Mr. Speaker, before I proceed with this media fiscal policy review, I wish to acknowledge the devastating floods that struck part of our country last month. Right Honorable Speaker, as honorable members will recall, the floods claimed lives, displaced families, destroyed businesses, and caused extensive damage to public infrastructure. Ghana was not alone. Similar floods also affected Nigeria, La Côte d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone, highlighting the growing flood risk across West African coastline and the effect of climate change. Mr. Speaker, government responded swiftly by visiting the hardest hit communities, releasing funds for emergency relief,
and launching a nationwide cleanup exercise. On the direction of His Excellency the President, I am making available additional resources for ongoing dredging and construction of critical drains in the affected areas. Mr. Speaker, I stand before this House with a deep sense of pride and confidence, born out of strong performance in the last 1.5 years in the management of the Ghanaian economy. Right Honorable Speaker, this confidence is grounded in sound policy, in evidence, in measurable performance, and in credible data, and most importantly, in the lived experience of Ghanaians who endured a profound economic crisis and are now standing on firmer ground. Mr. Speaker, Section 28 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 2921, requires the Minister for Finance to present to Parliament a mid-year fiscal policy review, not later than 31st of July of each year. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm here in fulfillment of this legal and constitutional obligation. Mr. Speaker, today I am not here to seek a supplementary estimate. The 2026 appropriations remains unchanged. Right Honorable Speaker, however, we are undertaking a strategic realignment of expenditures within the existing appropriations. Mr. Speaker, government also affirms the following macroeconomic target for 2026. Overall GDP growth of at least 4.8%. Non-oil real GDP growth of at least 4.9%. Mr. Speaker, NDI inflation of 8% plus or minus 2%. A primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP on commitment basis, and a gross international reserves sufficient to cover not less than 3 months of import. Mr. Speaker, beyond fulfilling a statutory obligation, these statements tell the story of where Ghana stood, where Ghana stands today, and where Ghana is heading. Mr. Speaker, I respectfully request the first text of this mid-year fiscal policy review be captured in the Hansard in its entirety, while I present the highlights to this House. Mr. Speaker, before I present the details of our economic performance, we must briefly recall where we came from. Do so because the lessons of economic history must never be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, when this administration took office in January 2025, President Mahama inherited an economy on its knees. Right Honorable Speaker, the economic crisis of 2022 was not merely an accident. It was the consequences of a series of wrong policy choices. Choices about reckless spending, choices about excessive and binge borrowing, choices about lack of accountability, and a failure to level with the people of Ghana about the true state of the Ghanaian economy. Mr. Speaker, the consequences of those wrong choices for the Ghanaian people were so severe. The cedi depreciated at levels never seen before, eroding savings, businesses, business capital, and purchasing power of millions of Ghanaians. Inflation exceeded 50%, dramatically increasing the cost of living and placing basic necessities beyond the reach of many people. Real disposable incomes declined sharply. Interest rates surged, making credit expensive for the private sector. Investor confidence collapsed. International reserves fell to extremely low levels. International credit rating agencies downgraded Ghana's sovereign debt to levels never seen in our history. Mr. Speaker, Ghana lost access to the international capital market. The previous government implemented most painful debt restructuring program that imposed crude and painful haircuts on domestic and external bondholders. Financial institutions and individual bondholders also suffered significant losses, with many losing their lifetime of savings. Even pensioners were not spared the burden of crude and painful haircuts under the DDP. The Speaker, and businesses closed or relocated, jobs were lost, and many households that had escaped poverty fell back into hardships. Mr. Speaker, this is an honest account of the economy and the one that His Excellency the President inherited. We recount this event not to dwell on the past, but to remind ourselves of the heavy price of fiscal indiscipline, excessive borrowing, weak accountability, and dishonest economic management. Mr. Speaker, Ghana must never be brought this low again. Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker. These painful experiences must strengthen our collective resolve to safeguard macroeconomic stability and ensure that such a crisis is never repeated. As a nation, we must internalize the true cost of economic mismanagement and commit ourselves to sound economic stewardship. Some lessons cannot simply be taught, they must be lived. But once learned, they must never be forgotten. Never again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this administration assumed office. When this administration assumed office, it moved swiftly and decisively to stabilize the economy and begin the work of national reconstruction. It was immediately clear that the old model of managing the economy had failed, and Ghana did not need incremental adjustment, but it needed structural reforms. We therefore took difficult but necessary decisions, which were neither politically convenient nor painless. These decisions demanded our collective sacrifice, Mr. Speaker, but they were necessary to restore stability and rebuild confidence. Right Honorable Speaker, the progress Ghana is recording today did not happen by chance. Some have suggested that our recent macroeconomic gains are simply the product of good fortune. Others have attributed the recovery solely to the debt restructuring program or the IMF program inherited in 2025. But Mr. Speaker, I firmly disagree. Our recovery is as a result of superior economic management. Mr. Speaker, for emphasis, I firmly disagree. Ghana's recovery is as a result of superior economic management. Debt restructuring may create fiscal space, but it does not create fiscal discipline. Right Honorable Speaker, an IMF program may provide a framework, but it cannot substitute for sound policy, disciplined implementation, and political will. Sustainable economic recovery is built on good policy choices, competent economic management, and disciplined execution, and most importantly, courageous leadership. Mr. Speaker, the evidence before us is overwhelming. Ghana's recovery has been driven by a deliberate program of economic reforms implemented since President Mahama assumed office in January 2025. These reforms have strengthened public financial management, restored fiscal credibility, improved revenue mobilization, reduced fiscal risk, and reinforced macroeconomic stability. The results speak for themselves. Every major macroeconomic indicator has improved significantly. These outcomes are not accidental. They are the product of reforms, discipline, and sound economic management. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore important to place on record the reforms that have delivered this turnaround. Mr. Speaker, the recovery of the Ghanaian economy has been anchored on three key transformational policy reforms. These key transformational reforms are as follows. The first is fiscal correction. The second is the modernization of Ghana's tax regime. And the third is a complementary fiscal policy for inflation targeting and exchange rate stability. Mr. Speaker, the first key transformational policy reform was fiscal correction. The objective was straightforward. First, to assume control over public finances. Second, is to introduce new expenditure discipline. And three, to place public debt on a sustainable path. We therefore recalibrated Ghana's fiscal framework to ensure greater efficiency, stronger accountability, and fairer burden sharing across government. Right Honorable Speaker, the 2025 budget reset expenditure to 2023 nominal levels, eliminating wasteful spending that had weakened fiscal management over the years. As a result, primary expenditure declined sharply from 18.7% of GDP in 2024 to 13.2% of GDP in 2025. Mr. Speaker, a 5.5% adjustment without hurting economic growth. Most importantly, Right Honorable Speaker, the primary balance also improved from a deficit of 2.9% of GDP in 2024 to a surplus of 2.5% of GDP in 2025, placing public debt firmly on a downward trajectory. Mr. Speaker, a fiscal adjustment expenditure led by 5.4% of GDP in one calendar year. Mr. Speaker, this sent an unmistakable signal to Ghanaians, investors, and other development partners that fiscal discipline is the new order. Mr. Speaker, government also recalibrated the IMF program, shifting the emphasis from revenue-led to expenditure-led fiscal consolidation to achieve a fairer sharing of the adjustment burden. We amended the Public Financial Management Act to institutionalize a binding fiscal rule requiring a minimum annual primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP and a debt-to-GDP ceiling of 45% by 2034. These reforms signaled that fiscal indiscipline would no longer define the Ghanaian state. Mr. Speaker, aside, we established the Value for Money Office to strengthen expenditure efficiency, improve the quality of public expenditure, and ensure that every cedi spent delivers maximum value for the Ghanaian people. We established the Fiscal Council to strengthen fiscal oversight, transparency, and accountability. We undertook a comprehensive audit of government payables to eliminate irregular obligations. We also enforced expenditure control. Government amended the Public Procurement Act to require commitment authorization before procurement. Mr. Speaker, this reform firmly linked procurement to approved budget and restored discipline to public expenditure management across the government. Right Honorable Speaker, for the first time, state-owned enterprises are now bound by the commitment authorization, restraining them from spending beyond their means. Mr. Speaker, over the last 10 years, liabilities of state-owned enterprises have added the equivalent of about 3% of GDP to Ghana's public debt every single year. Mr. Speaker, this occurred because state-owned enterprises failed to honor their contractual obligation, compelling government to assume and settle those liabilities. This contributed to the sharp rise in Ghana's public debt. As a result, Mr. Speaker, the resources that would have financed critical infrastructure were used to pay those SOEs' debt. This is part of the reason why Ghana's debt grew unsustainably without the bridges, roads, or hospitals to show for. Right Honorable Speaker, what is the point of ensuring that ministries and even parliament live within their means if state-owned enterprises are permitted to run up liabilities that the taxpayer are ultimately forced to pay? Mr. Speaker, it is therefore important to recognize that Ghana's debt challenge was driven not only by fiscal deficit, but also by the unchecked accumulation of liabilities by state-owned enterprises. This is precisely why the commitment authorization regime would have been meaningless and ultimately ineffective had state-owned enterprises been excluded from its coverage. Right Honorable Speaker, we also operationalized the sinking fund to strengthen debt management and demonstrate to government that government is committed to meeting future debt obligations. We restored genuine fiscal decentralization by ensuring that at least 80% of the district assembly's common fund is transferred directly to assemblies to support local development. Right Honorable Speaker, we reduced the number of ministers from 123 at its peak to 60 and reduced the number of ministries from 30 to 23 because, Mr. Speaker, because a leaner government is not merely good politics, but it's also a sound fiscal policy. We curtailed non-essential expenditure, including excessive foreign travel, workshops, conferences, and unnecessary vehicle procurement. We also discontinued low-impact programs like the Ghana Cares of Atampa and the U-Start to redirect scarce resources to national priorities. Mr. Speaker, the second key transformational policy reform was the modernization of Ghana's tax regime. The objective was very clear. First, to restore investor confidence. Second, to revive private enterprises. Third, to provide a relief to households and businesses, and also to increase domestic revenue through better policy, stronger compliance, and more efficient administration, not through higher tax reforms. We therefore abolished a number of nuisance taxes, including the following: e-levy, betting tax, COVID-19 health recovery levy, emission tax, VAT on motor insurance. Mr. Speaker, for the first time since 2015, we undertook comprehensive VAT reforms, removing distortions, improving efficiency, and strengthening compliance. More importantly, the reforms have left businesses with more working capital to invest, expand, and create jobs. We also introduced a sliding scale royalty regime for gold to ensure that Ghanaian people receive a fairer share of the economic returns from their natural resources. Right, Honorable Speaker, beyond tax policy, we introduced major customs reforms supported by artificial intelligence and other digital technologies to strengthen compliance, reduce leakages, and improve revenue mobilization. Since the introduction of the AI-powered customs reforms, monthly customs revenue has increased by approximately 17%, reflecting stronger compliance, more effective enforcement, and significantly reduced leakages. We also amended the misuse of the tax refund account, ensure that resources intended for legitimate tax refund was no longer used as a slush fund. Mr. Speaker, the results have been remarkable. Despite abolishing multiple taxes and introducing no new tax handle, non-oil tax revenue increased by 0.5% of GDP, from 12.6% of GDP in 2024 to 13.1% of GDP in 2025. Mr. Speaker, simply put, government collected more taxes in 2025, even after abolishing the nuisance taxes, including the e-levy. Right, Honorable Speaker, the lesson here is simple. Better policy, stronger compliance, and smarter administration will always deliver more sustainable revenue than higher taxes. Mr. Speaker, the third key transformational policy reform was the introduction of a complementary fiscal policy to support inflation targeting, ensuring exchange rate stability, and building external resilience. Central to this reform was the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board to curb gold smuggling, formalize the gold trade, and ensure that a greater share of Ghana's mineral wealth benefit the Ghanaian people. Through this intervention, Ghana generated an additional $15 billion in foreign exchange inflows from gold, significantly strengthening reserve accumulation and supporting exchange rate stability. This single policy measure improved Ghana's current account balance by 6.4 percentage points from a surplus of 1.9% in 2024 to 8.3% in 2025. Mr. Speaker, this represents a 4 times increment of the current account surplus in just 1 calendar year. Mr. Speaker, this was not simply a gold policy. This was a macroeconomic stabilization policy designed to strengthen the city, build external buffers, and restore confidence in the Ghanaian economy. To reinforce these gains, government developed and is implementing the Ghana Accelerated National Reserve Accumulation Policy, GANRAP, with the objective of increasing Ghana's international reserve to the equivalent of 15 months of import cover by end of 2028. In a landmark initiative, Mr. Speaker, government has also reached agreement with large-scale mining companies to purchase 30% of their annual gold production for refinery by local refineries, strengthening domestic value addition and supporting reserve accumulation. Government further amended the Bank of Ghana Act to make inflation targeting a shared responsibility between the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana, ensuring stronger coordination between fiscal and monetary authorities. Mr. Speaker, economic reforms must ultimately be judged by their outcomes. I now turn to the evidence of what these key transformational policy reforms have delivered for the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the results of the last 8 months demonstrate that disciplined policies, competent economic management, and consistent implementation delivers tangible results. Real GDP growth grew by 6.0% in 2025, the fastest pace of economic expansion since 2019. Instructively, Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP grew by 7.6% in 2025, the highest rate in 14 years, demonstrating that Ghana's recovery extends well beyond favorable commodity prices. Mr. Speaker, the momentum has continued into 2026. Real GDP growth reached 6.4% in the first half, exceeding expectations. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in our nation's history, the size of Ghana's economy exceeded $100 billion, firmly establishing Ghana as a major emerging market economy. Ghana's per capita income increased by more than $850 in just 1 year. Mr. Speaker, rising from $2,527 in 2024 to $3,385 at the end of 2025. This is the highest per capita income ever recorded in our country's history. It is therefore not surprising that Ghana is now recognized as the 8th largest economy in Africa. Mr. Speaker, these are not mere statistics. They represent higher incomes, stronger businesses, greater opportunities, and an economy with an enhanced capacity to invest in its people. The labor market is also improving. Unemployment rate declined from 13.7% during the first 3 quarters of 2024 to 12.8% over the same period in 2025. Multidimensional poverty, which measures deprivation across living conditions, education, health, and employment, declined from 24.9% in Q3 of 2024 to 21.9% in Q3 of 2025. Mr. Speaker, this simply means that about 950,000 Ghanaians moved out of the multidimensional poverty in just 1 year. Mr. Speaker, behind these statistics are the hundreds of thousands of families who now enjoy better living conditions and greater hope for the future. Right, Honorable Speaker, inflation perhaps tells the clearest story of all. Inflation declined from 23.8% in December 2024 to 5.4% at the end of 2025 and remained low at 5.3% in June 2026. Fiscal performance has also exceeded expectations. The primary balance on commitment basis recorded a surplus of 2.5% of GDP as at the end of 2025. By end of June 2026, we had achieved a primary surplus of 0.9% of GDP on commitment basis. We are firmly on track to achieve our end-year target of 1.5% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, prudent fiscal management has also translated into a rapid decline in Ghana's public debt. The debt to GDP ratio fell from 61.8% of GDP, 61.8% at the end of 2024 to 44.7% at the end of 2025 and reached 45% by end of June 2026. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has therefore already achieved its statutory debt target of 45% of GDP, years ahead of both IMF program timeline and the targeted date established under the Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, debt service is also consuming a far smaller share of government revenue. Debt service as a share of domestic revenue declined sharply from 55.7% in 2022 to 28.8% in 2025, freeing up billions of cedis for schools, hospitals, roads, and other national priorities. Mr. Speaker, for the first time since April 2014, Ghana's external and overall risk of debt distress has improved from high to moderate. Even more significantly, the joint World Bank IMF debt sustainability analysis has moved Ghana from unsustainable in 2023 to sustainable in 2025, and now for the first time ever to sustainable with room to absorb shocks.
Honorable Minister, please, First Deputy Speaker to take the chair.
Finance Minister, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, interest rates are singing from the same hymn book. The 91-day Treasury bill rate, a benchmark for the cost of short-term borrowing in Ghana, declined from 11% in December 2025 to 5.73% in June 2026, representing a 536 basis point reduction. The 182-day Treasury bill rate also fell from 12.52% to 7.69%, down by 483 basis points. Mr. Speaker, similarly, the 364-day Treasury bill rate from 12.94% to 12.82%, a 12 basis point decline. And across the entire yield curve, average decline was 344 from 12.94% to 12.82%, a 12 basis point decline. And across the entire yield curve, average decline was 344 basis points. 2 years, 3 years, and 5-year government bonds are now trading within the range of 11% to 12.6%, compared with about 20% a year ago. Right, Honorable Speaker, monetary policy rate has also declined by a cumulative 1,300 basis points, from 27% in January 2025 to 14% in July 2026. Mr. Speaker, these are not merely lower interest rates, they are lower borrowing costs for households and businesses, creating room for entrepreneurs to invest, expand, and create jobs. We have also made significant strides on the external front. The current account recorded a surplus of 8.3% of GDP in 2025 and has remained strong through the first half of 2026. The cedi appreciated by 40.7% against the United States dollar in 2025, reversing years of sharp depreciation and restoring confidence in the Ghanaian economy. Mr. Speaker, taken together, these results demonstrate that the 2026 budget is firmly on track. The targets we set at the beginning of the year were not aspirational. They were grounded in sound policy, disciplined implementation, and realistic assumptions. The performance of the economy in the first half of 2026 confirms that we're on course to achieve them. Economic growth is exceeding target. Inflation is below the projected range. Fiscal performance is stronger than programmed, and the debt trajectory is improving faster than expectation. Mr. Speaker, the detailed macroeconomic performance will be presented in subsequent sections in this review. Right, Honorable Speaker, the commitment we made to the people of Ghana are being honored, and the results are evident. I now wish to speak, Mr. Speaker, I now wish to speak directly to every Ghanaian listening to me this afternoon. To the market trader whose purchasing power has improved because inflation has fallen. To the entrepreneur who can now borrow at lower interest rate to expand their businesses. And to the worker whose income now stretches further because the cedi has stabilized. These improvements are not abstract statistics. They are the dividend of sound and competent economic management. We recognize that the sacrifices required to restore the economy were significant, and that many households continue to face challenges. But we also know that the foundations of Ghana's economy are now firmly in place. Fiscal discipline has been restored. Macroeconomic stability has returned. Confidence has been rebuilt. And the institutions needed to safeguard these gains have been strengthened. Under the leadership of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, Ghana is not going back. Ghana is moving forward. Mr. Speaker, the government that has delivered these results over the past 18 months has earned the trust to continue implementing the reforms that will secure Ghana's long-term prosperity. Right, Honorable Speaker, next week, the Executive Board of the IMF is expected to approve the final review of Ghana's Extended Credit Facility Program, bringing to a successful conclusion the financial bailout IMF program. The Executive Board is also expected to approve a 36-month policy coordination instrument, a non-financing arrangement designed for countries that no longer have and are not expected to face balance of payment needs. Mr. Speaker, the PCI will anchor our next phase of reforms, strengthening macroeconomic resilience, support broad-based growth, and signal our unwavering commitment to sound and disciplined macroeconomic policy. The PCI will support reforms across 6 priority areas. First is to maintain growth-friendly fiscal consolidation. Second is to preserve debt sustainability. Third is to strengthen fiscal transparency and governance. The fourth is to enhance monetary and exchange rate policy framework. The fifth is to reinforce financial sector stability. And finally, to promote economic diversity and inclusive growth. Mr. Speaker, we believe our strong implementation record, together with the successful execution of the PCI, will strengthen Ghana's path towards investment-grade status and enhance our ability to mobilize concessional and development financing for productive public investment. The PCI will include quantitative and 26 reform targets, monitored through semi-annual reviews to ensure sustained implementation of reforms that are critical to achieve our ambitious policy objective. Mr. Speaker, the details of the PCI targets are provided in detail in the media fiscal review document before the House. Right, Honorable Speaker, I now turn to macroeconomic performance for the first half of the year. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has not merely met its first half-year target, it has exceeded them. Mr. Speaker, overall GDP growth was 6.4% in the first quarter of 2026, well ahead of the 4.8% full-year target. Non-oil GDP growth was 6.3% in the first quarter of 2026, well ahead of the 4.9% full-year target. Inflation has more than halved, fallen from 13.7% in June 2025 to 5.3% by end of June 2026, against a target of 8 plus or minus 1% at the end of the year. The primary balance recorded a surplus of 0.9% of GDP on commitment basis, firmly on track to achieve our end-year target of 1.5% of GDP. Gross international reserves was 5 months of import cover as at end of June 2026, exceeding the target of at least 3 months of import cover. Mr. Speaker, January to June 2026, fiscal performance. Mr. Speaker, the provisional fiscal performance for the first half of 2026 is presented against the following approved 2026 fiscal target. Overall deficit target on commitment basis of 2.2% of GDP, primary surplus of 1.5% of the GDP, overall deficit on cash basis of 4% of GDP, and primary surplus on a cash basis of 0.4% of GDP. But Mr. Speaker, provisional fiscal outturn for the first half of 2026 was stronger than anticipated, indicating continued prudence in fiscal management and enhancing the government fiscal consolidation agenda. Non-oil tax revenue as at end of June 2026 was 6.4% of GDP compared to a target of 6.5% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, domestic revenue reached 7.7% of GDP by June 2026 compared to the target of 7.8% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grant reached 7.8% of GDP by June 2026 compared to a target of 7.9% of GDP. Total expenditure on commitment basis at the end of June 2026 was 8.0% of GDP against the half-year target of 9.9% of GDP. Primary expenditure, which excludes interest payment, was 6.6% of GDP by June 2026 compared to half-year target of 8.1% of GDP. Interest costs at 1.3% of GDP as at the end of June 2026 against the half-year target of 1.8% of GDP, indicating that we have saved on interest about 0.5% of GDP, reflecting lower interest rates and improved debt management. Mr. Speaker, this performance reflects the resolve of this administration to make difficult decisions, implement them consistently, and maintain unwavering fiscal discipline. Mr. Speaker, I now move to public debt. At the end of June 2026, domestic debt accounted for 54.4% of Ghana's total public debt portfolio, while external debt accounted for 45.6%. On the 17th of February 2026, government honored the 6th domestic debt exchange program coupon payment of 10.1 billion on time and in full. Mr. Speaker, the 7th DDEP coupon payment of 10.8 billion cedis falls due on the 18th of August 2026. Let me use this opportunity to assure this House that it will be paid on time and in full. Mr. Speaker, since January 2025, government has paid a total of $2.1 billion in principal and interest to Euro bondholders without placing undue pressure on Ghana's foreign exchange reserves. Right, Honorable Speaker, there was a time when the world doubted us. Today, every payment made on time answers that doubt, assuring bondholders in London, pension funds in New York, and investors at home that our word is our bond. Payment after payment, coupon after coupon, Ghana is proving one thing beyond dispute. We now keep our word. We now keep our word. That is how market confidence is rebuilt, not through speeches, but through repayment. Mr. Speaker, financial markets have delivered their verdict on Ghana's disciplined fiscal policies and prudent debt management. Right, Honorable Speaker, borrowing costs are down by half. In other words, government is borrowing less. That alone has saved us, this country, 4.2 billion cedis in just 6 months. Mr. Speaker, as Treasury bill rates decline, lending rates across the banking sector are also falling, making it cheaper for households, entrepreneurs, and businesses to borrow, invest, and expand, and at the same time, create jobs. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's Eurobond yields have fallen by about 300 basis points since the beginning of the year. This is not just a number. It is the market vote of confidence in our economy and our reforms. 3 years ago, Mr. Speaker, Ghana could not borrow on the international capital market at any price. Today, the market is inviting us back, but we are not in hurry. We are not in hurry. Right, Honorable Speaker, 3 years ago, Ghana could not borrow on the international capital market at any price. Today, the market is inviting us back, but I want to assure you, we are not in hurry. 3 years ago, unsustainable debt defined our crisis. Today, our debt to GDP ratio has fallen to 45% and still declining, ahead of every target. Mr. Speaker, the work is not finished, and the PFM debt rule requires continuous vigilance. But the direction is right, the momentum is real, and the foundation is solid. Solid. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's external debt restructuring, initiated after the sovereign debt default of 2022, is now at its final stage. In just 3.5 years, Ghana has moved from default to credibility, from debt distress to debt sustainability, from market exclusion to a renewed investor confidence. This is an achievement every Ghanaian can be proud of. Mr. Speaker, following the 2022 public debt default, government could not borrow long-term in cedis and relied heavily and solely on treasury bills to finance the budget. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has now overcome what the economists describe as the original sin, which is the inability of a country to borrow over the long term in its own currency. Mr. Speaker, 3 years restriction on new cedi bond issuance introduced as a result of the debt default caused this original sin. Mr. Speaker, in April 2026, Ghana successfully raised $2.7 billion through its first 7-year cedi-denominated bond since the 2022 debt default. This marks an important step in rebuilding the domestic bond market and restoring long-term financing in our own currency. This further demonstrates that Ghana has regained the ability to mobilize long-term financing in its own currency for development. Right, Honorable Speaker, I'm proud to announce that Ghana has now overcome the original sin. Requires us to look beyond today to tomorrow's obligation. Mr. Speaker, in 2027, DDEP bonds that will fall due is 58 billion Ghana cedis. Another 53 billion Ghana cedis will fall due in 2028. In 2 years alone, Ghana has to repay 111 billion cedis. 111. Mr. Speaker, this is the true Agenda 111. Right, Honorable Speaker? This is the true Agenda 111 Ghana must deal with. Why? Because the DDEP was not designed to solve Ghana's problems. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. This is the true Agenda 111 Ghana must deal with. Why? Why? Because the domestic debt exchange program was not designed to solve Ghana's debt problems. It was designed to postpone it deliberately knowingly and cynically, unfortunately. Mr. Speaker, its architect mortgaged tomorrow to survive today. Mr. Speaker, they had a duty to fix the roof. Instead, they moved the leak to another room and declared the house repaired. Right, Honorable Speaker, meeting obligations of this magnitude requires advanced planning, not last-minute scrambling. This is precisely why this government has strengthened the sinking fund to set aside money to repay future debt obligations that we inherited. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the 2026-2029 medium-term debt management strategy, we pledge that 7% of non-oil tax revenue, together with proceeds from domestic bond issuance, will go into the sinking fund as a war chest for the 2027 and 2028 maturities. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to report that today, I can report to this House that as at 22nd of July, yesterday, the war chest holds 15.6 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, we are on course to accumulate 30 billion cedis in the sinking fund by the end of the year 2026. Right, Honorable Speaker, for your information, this will be enough to repay the 30 billion domestic debt exchange program debt that will fall due in February 2027. Mr. Speaker, brick by brick, city by city, we are building the wall that will meet the wave so that when 2027 and 2028 comes, Ghana will not scramble. Ghana will simply pay back this debt. This is the signal the sinking fund sent to investors, credit rating agencies, and the people of Ghana, making it clear that this government plans ahead, honors its commitment, and manages the public finances better. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the financial sector. Government acted decisively in July 2025 to restore confidence and stability in Ghana's banking sector by fully recapitalizing the National Investment Bank, the Agricultural Development Bank, and the Consolidated Bank. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, GATT, completed the full recapitalization of UMB Bank. In addition, government facilitated the full capitalization of the Prudential Bank through a private sector-led approach. Right, Honorable Speaker, UMB and Prudential Bank today stands fully capitalized and prime for business. Mr. Speaker, we want to use this opportunity to encourage individuals, businesses, and institutions to take advantage of the revitalized UMB and Prudential Bank and bank with them. Mr. Speaker, yes. The 2023 domestic debt exchange program had a significant adverse impact on the Bank of Ghana's balance sheet, substantially weakening its capital and resulting in a negative net equity position. To restore the bank's financial strength, the government and the Bank of Ghana signed a memorandum of understanding on 6th January 2025 to recapitalize the bank over time. Consistent with the commitment in the MOU, and as a result of this government resolve to restore the bank's financial position, government issued a recapitalization bond to the Bank of Ghana of $5.5 billion as cedis to the Bank of Ghana in March 2026 to strengthen the bank's equity base. Mr. Speaker, going forward, the government of Ghana will make annual provision to capitalize the Bank of Ghana until the bank's equity is fully restored, in accordance with the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act 2025, Act 1158. Mr. Speaker, whilst government is helping to restore the Bank of Ghana's capital, the bank itself will undertake a comprehensive operational efficiency review to reduce costs, strengthen financial management, and rebuild its long-term financial sustainability. Mr. Speaker, to implement the Ghana Accelerated Reserve Accumulation Policy, government has significantly reduced the cost of the program from an average of 14.5% of gold purchase to 5%. Mr. Speaker, government is bearing the cost of the program and has accommodated 5 billion cedis in the 2026 budget within the same appropriations. Mr. Speaker, this investment is building an economic war chest to strengthen Ghana's international reserves, protect the cedi, reinforce economic stability, improve investor confidence, and shield the economy from international shocks. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to update of the implementation of the fiscal policies that this House approved for us. Right, Honorable Speaker, 6 months ago, this House approved an ambitious program of fiscal reforms. Today, I'm pleased to report that implementation is well underway. Key milestones have been achieved, and the reforms are already delivering measurable results. On the revenue side, government is targeting an increase in non-oil tax revenue from 13.1% of GDP in 2025 to 14.1% of GDP in 2026, 1% increase, through improved compliance, broader tax basis, and enhanced revenue administration, and not through higher taxes. Mr. Speaker, we will achieve it. On the expenditure side, government remains firmly committed to keeping spending within approved limits while improving its efficiency and effectiveness. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the individual tax reforms. Mr. Speaker, this government introduced the most ambitious reforms to Ghana's VAT system in over a decade to eliminate long-standing distortions, improve efficiency, and support business growth. We abolished COVID-19 health recovery levy. We decoupled Get Fund levy and the National Health Insurance levy from the VAT base, making both eligible for input tax deduction. We reduced the effective VAT rate from 21.9% to 20%. We abolished VAT on recognizance and prospecting for minerals. We raised VAT registration threshold from 200,000 to 750,000, relieving thousands of micro and small businesses of the obligation to register for and charge VAT. And we extended the zero rating of locally manufactured textiles to 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, these reforms have simplified VAT systems, removed distortions, lowered the tax burden, and strengthened the foundation for improved compliance. Mr. Speaker, reforming the tax law was only the first step. Government is now leveraging technology to transform revenue administration and improve compliance. The cross-border technology solution for collecting VAT from non-resident platforms was successfully piloted in April 2026. The pilot confirmed that the system is functional, stable, secure, and compliant with regulatory requirements. Government is now moving decisively to secure the necessary regulatory approval for its nationwide rollout. Upon full deployment, Mr. Speaker, the system is projected to generate about 2.3 billion Ghana cedis in its first full year of operation, with revenue expected to grow by about 20% annually. Mr. Speaker, this is sustainable revenue without increasing tax rates. It simply ensures that cross-border digital platforms earning income from Ghanaian customers pay their fair share of taxes. Mr. Speaker, government is also rolling out fiscal electronic devices to strengthen VAT compliance and improve the monitoring of taxable transactions. The pilot phase is at an advanced stage. to encourage participation and improve compliance. Government will also introduce the VAT reward scheme, under which customers who obtain valid VAT invoice will qualify for periodic reward. This will actively involve every Ghanaian in protecting the nation's tax base. Mr. Speaker, this is how a tax culture is built, not through fear, but through participation, transparency, and reward. Right, Honorable Speaker, the concept of fiscal electronic device was first proposed by the previous NDC administration in 2026. But Mr. Speaker, the previous NPP administration deserves commendation for enacting the necessary enabling legislation. Mr. Speaker, the taxation, the use of Fiscal Electronic Device Act 2018, Act 999, laying an important legal foundation for this reform. Mr. Speaker, 8 years on, this government is taking the decisive step of implementing the reforms. Mr. Speaker, for emphasis, the enabling legislation, the taxation, the use of Fiscal Electronic Device Act 2018, Act 966, was introduced in 2018 by the previous NPP administration. Mr. Speaker, I just want to use this opportunity to commend them. 8 years on, this government is taking the decisive step of implementing the reform. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, the chairman and the ranking members of the Finance and the Budget Committee of Parliament have been invited to provide strategic oversight for the implementation of this important national reform. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Ghana currently loses an estimated 60% of its potential VAT revenue through non-compliance and systemic inefficiencies. This is unacceptable. Losing 60% of the VAT that you are supposed to collect to develop your country. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. It cannot continue, and under this government, this will not continue. I call on Parliament to support government to crack down on businesses and individuals who collect VAT from taxpayers and keep it instead of remitting it to the state. Mr. Speaker, fiscal electronic devices will help improve VAT collection, reduce revenue leakages, and ensure that businesses account properly for VAT they collect. Mr. Speaker, government has completed a comprehensive review of the Customs Act and the Excise Act. The bills are being laid before this House as part of the mid-year fiscal policy review. I respectfully urge honorable members to give Customs and Excise Bill the expeditious consideration it deserves, so that these important reforms can be implemented without delay. Right, Honorable Speaker, trade facilitation must never become a vehicle for tax evasion. Yet, Mr. Speaker, between 2020 and 2025, while 63% of taxable income entered directly into home consumption, the remaining 37% passed through customs suspense framework, including warehousing, transit, temporary admission, and free zones. These procedures exist to facilitate legitimate trade. However, Mr. Speaker, they have increasingly been exploited to evade duties and divert goods into domestic market without paying a single tax in return. Mr. Speaker, the cost extends far beyond lost revenue. Honest Ghanaian businesses and manufacturers are being forced to compete with imported goods that entered the domestic market through tax evasion. Mr. Speaker, this is not fair competition. It is an unfair burden on every law-abiding Ghanaian businesses. It must end. I must end now. Mr. Speaker, the customs bill before this House introduced bold reforms to close these loopholes and restore the integrity of Ghana's customs administration. To curb the abuse of warehousing, Mr. Speaker, government will introduce statutory maximum warehousing period as follows. Perishable goods, 3 months. General goods, 6 months. Raw materials, 12 months. Re-warehousing, Mr. Speaker, will be restricted to a maximum of 6 months, ending the practice of rolling warehousing. In addition, every bonded warehouse will be required to operate electronic inventory system linked to customs to enable real-time monitoring and audit control. Mr. Speaker, these are not merely administrative adjustments. They are structural reforms designed to accelerate revenue collection, reduce port congestion, improve compliance, and provide greater certainty for legitimate businesses. Government is also introducing the first port duty rule. Under this reform, Mr. Speaker, duties and taxes on goods declared for transit will become due at the first port of entry, removing one of the biggest avenues for false declaration and revenue leakages. Mr. Speaker, this simply means, Mr. Speaker, if you are to bring in something and you are to inform the customs official that the goods is destined to say Burkina Faso customs will be at the Tema port to collect their taxes before you move. This will end the practice of a punchy break. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, appropriate customs to customs arrangement with destination countries will ensure that legitimate transit trade continues seamlessly whilst protecting Ghana's revenue. Right Honorable Speaker, Free Zones regime was established to promote export-led industrialization, not to serve as a duty-free trading and storage hub. Unfortunately, over the time, that objective has been undermined by abuse of the regime and weak controls over the use of raw materials. Ghana's free zones will once again serve their original purpose, build domestic industry, expand export, and create quality jobs for Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, government will also strengthen import declaration and valuation by mandating the use of appropriate tax identification number for all importers. Mr. Speaker, downstream petroleum operations have for too long operated with fragmented controls and weak integration into customs systems. Mr. Speaker, bunkering and ship stores regime have consequently become vulnerable to diversion, under declaration and smuggling. This economy can no longer afford these leakages. Mr. Speaker, government would therefore enforce the statutory requirement for bank guarantee on the lifting of refined petroleum products and require product movement to be undertaken by only through approved pipelines and electronically tracked distribution system. Mr. Speaker, government will also remove the tax exemption on bunkering services in line with international practice to curb smuggling, strengthen compliance, and protect much needed revenue. Right Honorable Speaker, I now take you to excise duties. The evidence for reform is equally compelling in the area of excise duties. Analysis of wine and spirit imported between 2023 and 2025 shows a taxable revenue of over 5 billion Ghana cedis. However, about 78%, worth 4 billion Ghana cedis, entered customs procedures such as warehousing and transit. In other words, almost 4 out of every 5 cedis of the potential excise tax based on wine and spirit escaped the tax net. Mr. Speaker, only 1 cedi out of every 5 cedi was subjected to excise duty. That is neither efficient nor sustainable, and this must change. The excise duty bill before this House introduced a comprehensive package of reforms to close these leakages. So, Speaker, we will crack down this leakage. Right Honorable Speaker, specifically, government will introduce a hybrid excise system combining value-based and quantity-based taxation for wines and spirit to eliminate persistent undervaluation and misclassification and ensure a minimum level of tax is paid regardless of the declared value. Mr. Speaker, we will review the existing sliding scale excise rate for beer and stout product to better align them with government revenue objectives while preserving the incentive for local production. Right, Honorable Speaker. Strengthening compliance through mandatory electronic registration of stockists, a nationwide track and trace system, penalties of up to 3 times the excise duty for tempering, and enforcing the law on requiring bank guarantees, and abolishing, Mr. Speaker, the payment of 20% excise duty on locally manufactured fruit juice. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 20% excise duty on locally manufactured fruit juices introduced in 2023. Right, Honorable Speaker, this is to support agro-processing and job creation. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the Publican AI trade solution. Technology is already transforming customs administration. The Publican AI trade solution was fully deployed in March 2026, and the results has been remarkable. Mr. Speaker, between the pilot phase, January and February, and the full rollout phase, March to 17 July 2026, the Publican AI trade solution increased assessed customs collection by over $300 million, representing 17.5% uplift over the values originally declared by importers. Mr. Speaker, Publican increased the aggregate declared costs, insurance and freight value of imports by approximately 6.3%, but increased the assessed collection by 17.5%. Since deployment, Mr. Speaker, the system has analyzed approximately 366,000 import declarations, nearly 1 in every 4, representing 24%, triggered more than 1 valuation risk indicator, requiring further review by customs officials. Before the deployment of the Publican AI, many of these declarations would have been cleared without scrutiny, leading to substantially revenue losses. Mr. Speaker, the positive impact on customs revenue collection has been massive. Mr. Speaker, in March 2026 alone, Publican increased the assessed collection by 73.44 million United States dollars, representing an uplift of 25.7%. Mr. Speaker, this was followed by additional assessed collection of 51.63 million in April 2026, 72.5 million in May, and 55.82 million in June, and 35.17 million for the first 17 days of July. Mr. Speaker, the impact is also reflecting in monthly customs revenue, which has increased from an average of approximately 4 billion Ghana cedis in 2025 to between 5.3 billion Ghana cedis and 5.5 billion Ghana cedis in 2026. So, Speaker, let me take this again. In 2024, an average monthly customs collection was 4 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the average monthly customs collection has moved to 5.3 billion cedis to 5.5 billion Ghana cedis. Despite the significant appreciation of the cedi and no major increase in volumes, Mr. Speaker, I have included some of the cases identified by the Publican system in the media review document. Mr. Speaker, it is mind-blowing. Right, Honorable Speaker, in each instance, the declared value was only a fraction of the value assessed by the AI Publican system. Mr. Speaker, I now give you update on expenditure measures. Mr. Speaker, government is proposing further reforms to the public procurement, Mr. Speaker, in 3 different areas. First, the first reform is shortening procurement lead times. Mr. Speaker, the second reform is to limit the use of single source procurement. And the third is to tighten restricted tendering. Right, Honorable Speaker, government will shorten procurement timelines. The lead time for national competitive tendering for goods will be reduced from 23 weeks to 8 weeks. Mr. Speaker, international competitive tendering for works will be reduced from 27 weeks to 14 weeks. Mr. Speaker, Competitive tendering must remain the norm. Restricted tendering and single source procurement must be the exception. Government will therefore tighten the rules governing these exceptional procurement methods, strengthening oversight and improve accountability to ensure greater transparency and better value for money. Single source procurement will be permitted only in genuine exceptional circumstances, such as emergencies, national security, or where only one supplier is capable of delivering the required goods, works, and services. Right, Honorable Speaker. Urgency arising from poor planning will no longer be treated as an emergency. Government will also strengthen accountability by introducing sanctions for approvals granted in breach of the Public Procurement Act. Mr. Speaker, these reforms will speed up project delivery, strengthen competition, improve value for money, and reduce opportunities for procurement abuses. Right, Honorable Speaker, I now take you to flood response and mitigation measures. Mr. Speaker, following the widespread flooding that affected Greater Accra and other parts of the country in June 2026, government sought parliamentary approval to draw 350 million from the contingency fund to finance emergency response intervention. On the 30th of June 2026, the Finance Committee of Parliament, acting under Article 1771 of the Constitution, approved the request. However, Mr. Speaker, government was unable to access the funds because the contingency fund was subject to a Ghanaian order issued by the Accra High Court. Mr. Speaker, given the urgency of protecting lives, providing humanitarian relief to affected communities, and restoring critical infrastructure, government reallocated 350 million from the contingency vote under the control of the Minister of Finance in the 2026 budget to the Disaster Management Committee under the Ministry of Interior to finance the emergency responses. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen flood mitigation efforts across the country, government also reallocated 226 million within the budget of the Ministry of Works and Housing and Water Resources to implement additional flood control and mitigation measures. Mr. Speaker, government is committed to improving urban mobility and providing safe, reliable, and affordable public transport for Ghanaians. To this end, government is reallocating 400 million Ghana cedis for the acquisition of high occupancy buses to strengthen the fleet of state-owned transport companies, including Metro Mass Transit and the State Transport Company. Mr. Speaker, this intervention will expand public transport capacity, particularly along high-demand urban and intercity routes, reducing long passenger queues during peak hours, and provide commuters with more reliable and efficient alternative to private vehicles. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the update on key policy initiatives that this House approved. Right, Honorable Speaker, I now report on the implementation on some of the government key policy initiatives during the first half of 2026. First, Mr. Speaker, Ghana's crude oil production declined sharply from 71.4 billion barrels in 2019 to about 36 million barrels in 2025. To reverse this decline, government has introduced investor-friendly reforms that have already secured more than $3.5 billion in new investment commitment from the Jubilee and OCTP partners. Right, Honorable Speaker, these reforms are already delivering results. Oil production has exceeded expectation this year, with Jubilee increasing from a projected 68,000 barrels to about 95,000 barrels per day. Mr. Speaker, while Sankofa is now producing about 28,000 barrels per day. Mr. Speaker, gas production has also increased from 245 million to about 282 million standard cubic feet per day. And, Mr. Speaker, a new agreement with the OCTP partners will increase gas gas production further to 350 million standard cubic feet per day. Government is also updating the laws governing the upstream petroleum sector to make Ghana more attractive for investment, with a proposed amendment to be submitted to this Parliament before the year end. Right Honourable Speaker, government remains firmly committed to its gas to power strategy, which is replacing expensive light crude oil with cleaner and cheaper natural gas. This transition is expected to reduce electricity generation costs by at least 75%. I am pleased to report that by the end of June 2026, government has increased gas supply for power generation by an additional 35 million standard cubic feet per day, bringing total supply to about 490 million standard cubic feet of gas per day. The increase comprises 10 million standard cubic feet per day from the OCTP partners led by ANI and 25 million standard cubic feet per day from the NGAS. Mr. Speaker, this strategic shift is already delivering significant savings. By replacing light crude oil with natural gas, government saved about 3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to $268.8 million in fuel costs during the first half of 2026. Mr. Speaker, government in partnership with the private sector, is developing 100 million standard cubic feet per day modular gas processing facility. Land acquisition has been completed, while the environmental assessment, engineering design, financial due diligence, and project structuring are underway. Mr. Speaker, this will be submitted to Parliament for consideration. Financial close is expected by end of 2026. Right, Honourable Speaker, the project is expected to create nearly 1,000 jobs and generate about $2 billion in benefit to the state over the next 5 years through fuel savings, foreign exchange savings, taxes, levies, and dividend. Mr. Speaker, I now report on our 1,200 megawatt state-owned power plant. Right, Honourable Speaker, government is also developing a 1,200 megawatt state-owned combined cycle gas-fired power plant at Kafudidi Abrobano in the Commander Edna Egwafo Ebrim municipality. Mr. Speaker, feasibility studies have confirmed the project viability with environmental engineering and permitting processes progressing steadily. The first 600 megawatt phase is expected to be commissioned in 2028. Right, Honourable Speaker, to reduce costs, government secured the gas turbines directly from GE Vernova, achieving savings of between 35% and 45% compared with third-party procurement. Right, Honourable Speaker, the project will lower electricity generation costs, help reduce electricity tariff by 10 to 20%, and create more than 2,000 direct and indirect jobs during the first phase. So, Speaker, I now take you to the big push. Right, Honourable Speaker. Right, Honourable Speaker. Government Big Push Infrastructure Program is driving the largest coordinated investment in strategic transport infrastructure in recent years, with projects underway in all 16 regions of the country. Mr. Speaker, work has commenced on 87 projects, comprising 74 trunk roads and bridges, 10 urban roads and 3 feeder roads. Mr. Speaker, by end of June 2026, 13 projects had reached at least 50% completion, including 6 projects that had exceeded 75%, while a further 15 projects had progressed beyond 25% completion. Significant progress has been made on key corridors, including the Kaswa-Winneba, Takrade-Aguna Junction, Ofanko in Sawom, Tepa-Goso, Adentan-Dodowa, Tema Aflao, Penny Aflao, Wenchi Sola Atimpoku Ho Aflao, Tumu Han Laura, Tumu Navrongo, and Winneba Cape Coast Takrady roads. Right Honorable Speaker, the construction of the Swami Interchange Phase 2, the Sunyani, Tamale, and Kumasi Outer Ring Road are progressing. Mr. Speaker, feeder road projects in the Eastern Volta region are also improving access to farming communities and market access. During the second half of the year, government will fast-track project nearing completion. Mr. Speaker, improve contractor performance and remove bottlenecks to ensure they are completed on time. Right Honorable Speaker, I take you to the Accra-Kumasi Expressway. Mr. Speaker, the Accra-Kumasi Expressway remains the flagship under the Big Push program. It involves the construction of 176-kilometer, 6-lane bi-directional expressway linking Ghana's two largest commercial cities. When completed, Mr. Speaker, the expressway will reduce travel time between Accra and Kumasi to about 2 hours. Improved road safety, ease congestion, lower transport costs, and feature modern interchanges, bridges, intelligent transport system, electronic tolling, emergency response facilities, and rest spots. Mr. Speaker, government has made substantial progress in the project preparation. As of 22nd July 2026, yesterday, the Ghana Armed Forces have cleared 122 kilometers, representing about 70% of the 120-meter wide right-of-way in just 12 weeks. Mr. Speaker, the entire corridor is expected to be cleared by the first week of September 2026. Right Honorable Speaker, compensation assessment, environmental studies, engineering design, feasibility works are progressing simultaneously. The feasibility study and detailed engineering design are expected to be completed by end of August 2026, next month. Mr. Speaker, with procurement for the main construction contract to commence in September 2026. Mr. Speaker, as of 2nd of July 2026, $1.7 billion United States dollars have been deposited into a dedicated Accra-Kumasi Expressway account at the Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, for emphasis, as at yesterday, 22nd of July 2026, the government of Ghana has deposited $1.7 billion United States dollars into an account, a dedicated account at the Bank of Ghana solely for this project. The funds have been ring-fenced and will be used only after the main construction contract is awarded. I can share it. Mr. Speaker, government is therefore confident that all the requirements for this transformational project, including the resources, the money, will be in place when His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama cut the sword for the construction of the project to begin. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to Achia Manfuom, and also Achia Manfuom Bridge. Right Honorable Speaker, for centuries, the people of Afam Plains have relied on ferries to cross the Afam River. While these ferries have served the area for many years, frequent delays and seasonal disruptions have impeded easy access and movement of people, goods, and the provision of essential services. The Adosu Achia Manfuom Bridge, a 3.6-kilometer permanent bridge, will be the longest in Ghana and will replace the ferries, providing a safe, reliable, and all-weather crossing. As part of Ghana's Big Push infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, it will connect the Kwewu-Afram Plains to the national road network and unlock the significant potential of one of Ghana's most important food baskets. The bridge will make it easier for farmers to transport maize, cassava, yam, rice, and other produce to market, reducing travel time. It will also improve access to healthcare, education, and other essential services while creating jobs, attracting investment, and supporting food security. Expected to be completed by end of 2028, the Adoso Echi Amanfum Bridge is a gateway to opportunities, bringing communities closer to markets, services, and better future. The Speaker, the Dambai Bridge. Works is also progressing on the Dambai Bridge, a critical project that will provide a permanent crossing between Dambai and Dodi Kope and strengthen transport along the Eastern Corridor. The Speaker, the project comprises 1.49 kilometer bridge and approximately 6.8 kilometer of approach roads. The Speaker, at the end of June 2026, fiscal progress had reached 6%, slightly ahead of schedule, with foundation work and construction of the temporary bridge already underway. Right, Honorable Speaker, I now take you to the 1,000-kilometer agriculture enclave road, of which Parliament approved 2 days ago. Mr. Speaker, government has begun the implementation of the agriculture enclave road program. Government is investing $528 million United States dollars, equivalent in cedis, to rehabilitate 1,050 kilometers of feeder roads across 4 major agriculture producing corridors. Mr. Speaker, upon completion, the project is expected to rehabilitate 1,050 kilometers of feeder roads, ensure 100% of rehabilitated roads are maintained under performance-based contract, expand the National Road Asset Management Database to achieve 100% coverage, create approximately 25,000 direct and indirect jobs, including at least 7,500 jobs for women, and reduce travel time by over 40% on paved roads and 30% on unpaved roads. Mr. Speaker, the first phase will involve the rehabilitation of 1,050 kilometers of feeder roads to be undertaken across 4 agriculture clusters covering 13 regions of the country. Right, Honorable Speaker, Cluster 1 will cover 300 kilometers of roads in Upper West, Northern Region, and Savannah regions, and that will be 300 kilometers. Clusters 2, Mr. Speaker, will rehabilitate 300 kilometers of roads in the Oti, Volta, and the Eastern regions. Mr. Speaker, Cluster 3 will also rehabilitate 250 kilometers of roads in Ashanti, Bono East, and Eastern region. And finally, Mr. Speaker, Cluster 4 will cover 200 kilometers of roads in Western North, Western, Central, and Ahafo region. Mr. Speaker, this investment will improve connectivity between farms and market, reduce post-harvest losses, lower transport costs, and support agricultural transformation in some of Ghana's most productive farming areas. Mr. Speaker, I take you to the oil palm. Right, Honorable Speaker, government remains committed to transforming Ghana's oil palm industry into a major driver of industrialization, export growth, import substitution, and rural employment. A key pillar of the integrated oil palm development policy is the establishment of a sustainability-compliant oil palm land banks to de-risk private sector investment and accelerate the development of large-scale plantation integrated with smallholder and outgrower schemes. Mr. Speaker, implementation of this initiative is progressing steadily. The Ministry of Land and Natural Resources, working in collaboration with the private sector and other relevant institutions, have reviewed over 270,000 hectares of land in the Western region. Right, Honorable Speaker, drone survey have been completed on over 117,000 hectares, whilst 46,000 hectares have been selected for detailed land use change analysis. To date, assessment has been completed on 16,000 hectares, of which approximately 10,780 hectares have been identified as suitable for sustainable oil palm development. Right, Honorable Speaker, these areas are now undergoing the required environmental, social, and sustainable assessment, including high conservation value, high carbon stock, and free, prior, and informed consent (FPIC) processes in line with the international standard. Mr. Speaker, similar mapping, land documentation activities have commenced in the central region, with preparatory work underway in Eastern and Volta region. Based on the current assessment, Mr. Speaker, the Western region alone is expected to provide approximately 30,000 hectares of land for the first phase of the development. Mr. Speaker, as work expands nationwide, the land bank has the potential to exceed 100,000 hectares across Ghana's oil palm growing belt. Mr. Speaker, this initiative will unlock significant private sector investment, create over 250 direct and indirect jobs across the value chain, and strengthen smallholder participation, increase domestic crude oil palm production, reduce import dependency, and position Ghana as a leading hub for oil palm processing and exports. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to work with stakeholders to ensure that this program is implemented responsibly, sustainably, and in a manner that delivers lasting benefit to our communities and the national economy. Now listen, Mr. Speaker, government is also finalizing the $500 million United States dollars integrated oil palm development financing agreement with the World Bank for on-lending to the private sector for the development of large-scale commercial oil palm plantation. We expect to conclude and present it to this House by the end of this year. Right, Honorable Speaker, we expect to bring it for approval by the end of this year. Right, Honorable Speaker, as part of Government Feed Ghana program, we have commenced the establishment of the 50 farmer service centers across the country to improve farmers' access to mechanization and extension services. To support this initiative, government has deposited 551 million Ghana cedis into an escrow account at the Bank of Ghana to establish the letters of credit for the procurement of 1,840 units of agricultural machineries and equipment. These include tractors, trailers, power tillers, plows, cultivators, seed drills, sprayers, fertilizer spreaders, and combine harvesters, which will significantly improve farm productivity, reduce production costs, and enhance food security. Mr. Speaker, cocoa sector reforms. Right, Honorable Speaker, the cocoa sector remains a cornerstone of Ghana's economy. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is serving as a major source of export earnings and livelihood for millions of Ghanaians, particularly in rural Ghana. Mr. Speaker, since the enactment of the Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, PNDC Law 81, the Ghana cocoa industry has undergone significant transformation. To modernize the governance and financing of the sector, government will submit a new Cocoa Board Bill to Parliament to repeal and replace the Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, PNDC Law 81. Mr. Speaker, the proposed legislation will introduce a new producer pricing mechanism that aligns producer price with movement in international cocoa price, exchange rate development, and other relevant market conditions. We will also guarantee the cocoa farmer not less than 70% of gross free on board price. Mr. Speaker, we will also seek to establish a new financing framework for cocoa purchases and related operations and restore the long-term financial sustainability and operational efficiency of Ghana Cocoa Board. The bill will also ensure that not less than 50% of cocoa beans produced in Ghana is processed here in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, we will also restrain Ghana Cocoa Board from taking part in quasi-fiscal activities. Right, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these reforms will place Ghana's cocoa sector on a stronger financial footing, improve returns to cocoa farmer, ensure value addition, and position the industry for sustainable long-term growth. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to transforming secondary education and eliminating the double track. Mr. Speaker, the government of Ghana the education remains one of the most powerful investments we can make in the future of our country. Government is therefore taking bold steps to transform secondary education through a $300 million United States dollar World Bank financing. Mr. Speaker, under this $300 million United States dollar World Bank financing initiative, government will undertake 210 major infrastructure interventions across the country. These include, Mr. Speaker, we are building 10 new secondary schools. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will rehabilitate 150 secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we are upgrading 30 Category C secondary schools to become a Category B school. Mr. Speaker, aside, we are also upgrading 20 Category B schools to be part of Category A. Mr. Speaker, we are also going to procure furniture to support these schools that we are upgrading and ensure that every school child going to any of our secondary schools benefits from textbooks free of charge. Mr. Speaker, 10 new secondary schools will be strategically distributed to improve access in the underserved areas. One new school each will be constructed in Western North, Greater Accra, Volta, Oti, Northern, Upper East, Upper West, Savannah, and Central Region. Mr. Speaker, upon completion, the project is expected to benefit about 2.3 million students, over 100,000 teachers, and about 2,000 school leaders across the country. The project will support government effort to eliminate the double track within 2 calendar years. Mr. Speaker, improved learning outcomes, particularly in mathematics and science, expand female participation in STEM and TVET education, and equip our young people with the digital, technical, and green skills required for the jobs of the future. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to free primary health care. Right, Honorable Speaker, government remains committed to ensuring that every Ghanaian has access to quality primary health care, regardless of income or location. Following the launch of the free primary health care policy in April 2026, the first phase of implementation is targeting 150 underserved districts across the country. Mr. Speaker, government has distributed more than 24,000 pieces of medical equipment to strengthen diagnostics, emergency, maternal, and neonatal care. Mr. Speaker, we have also deployed motorbikes, tricycles, and mobile outreach equipment to improve healthcare delivery in hard-to-reach communities. In addition, community screening for hypertension, diabetes, cancer, and other non-communicable diseases has been expanded, while the establishment of health kiosks, container-based health posts, and upgrading of existing primary healthcare facilities are underway. Women's Development Bank, Mr. Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker. Government has made progress towards the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. On the 26th of January 2026, the bank was formally incorporated as WDB Ghana Limited. Mr. Speaker, following its incorporation, government applied to the Bank of Ghana for the requisite banking license to enable the bank commence operations. Mr. Speaker, in fulfillment of the capital requirement for licensing, the Ministry of Finance has deposited an amount of 400 million Ghana cedis into an account with the Bank of Ghana as the initial capital for the Women's Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, the Women's Development Bank is expected to commence full operations before the end of this year. Mr. Speaker, and I'll bring you to the conclusion. Right Honorable Speaker, in recent times, a narrative has emerged suggesting that this government is not spending enough. Mr. Speaker, nothing can be further from the truth. Far from standing still, we have been steadily and responsibly deploying resources guided by the simple but firm principle that we can only spend only what we have, and we spend it wisely and with the future of our nation in view. Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of transparency and accountability, allow me to lay before this House a clear account of some of the expenditure we have made so far to support government programs across the sectors approved in the 2026 budget. Mr. Speaker, first, to compensate public sector workers, an amount of 48.8 billion Ghana cedis for compensation of employees has been paid, including 4 billion Ghana cedis as contribution to SNIT and 2 billion Ghana cedis as Tier 2 pension scheme. Mr. Speaker, to honor our debt obligation, an amount of 21.5 billion for interest has been paid. To honor our international debt obligation, an amount of $700 million for Eurobond debt service and interest have also been paid. To restore confidence on our financial systems, an amount of 10 billion Ghana cedis to domestic bondholders has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to deepen fiscal decentralization, an amount of 4.4 billion cedis to the District Assembly's Common Fund, representing the first 2 quarters of the year, has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to keep the National Health Insurance Scheme strong and vibrant, an amount of 4.5 billion Ghana cedis has been paid. To strengthen specialized health care, an amount of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis to Mahama Cares has been paid. Right Honorable Speaker, to support quality and access education and accessible education, an amount of 4.2 billion Ghana cedis for the first 6 months of the year to the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund, has been paid. Right Honorable Speaker, to strengthen free secondary education program and ease the burden on families, and an amount of 1.8 billion cedis to the free secondary education program has been paid. Right Honorable Speaker, to improve road maintenance, an amount of 1.7 billion Ghana cedis to the Road Maintenance Trust Fund has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to support job creation for young people, an amount of 459 million Ghana cedis to the Youth Employment Agency has been paid. Mr. Speaker, again to support petroleum sector, an amount of 961 million Ghana cedis to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to promote development in mining communities and mining institutions, an amount of 458 million to the Mineral Development Fund has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to keep the light on across the country, an amount of 7.1 billion Ghana cedis to the energy sector for stable power supply has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to clear legacy arrests, to clear your arrests, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 5.3 billion Ghana cedis has been paid to, Mr. Speaker, to give remaining to free compulsory basic education, an amount of 76 million Ghana cedis as capitation grant has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to support the most vulnerable in our society. An amount of 485 million Ghana cedis to LEAP beneficiaries has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to provide nutritious meal and keep our children in school, an amount of 877 million to the Ghana School Feeding Program has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to ease the burden on families, an amount of 46 million for BEC registration has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to remove financial barriers to tertiary education, an amount of 537 million for the no-fee stress policy has been paid. Right, Honorable Speaker. To support teachers, the teacher trainees, an amount of 104 million as teacher training allowance has been paid. Right, Honorable Speaker. To support nursing training, an amount of 144 million as nursing training allowance has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen grassroots governance, an amount of 93 million as assembly members allowance has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to promote skills development and entrepreneur, an amount of 45 million for the National Apprenticeship Program has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to support Ghana's participation in the 2026 FIFA World Cup, an amount of 58 million has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to support environmental sustainability, an amount of 477.4 million to ARICOPS has been paid. Mr. Speaker, in fulfillment of our campaign promise, an amount of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for flagship programs, including food, buffer stock, fertilizers, certified seed distribution, Feed Ghana, irrigation infrastructure, has been paid. Right, Honorable Speaker. To modernize agriculture through the establishment of the Farmer Service Center, an amount of 551 million into an escrow account for the establishment of a letter of credit has been paid. Right, Honorable Speaker. To support infrastructure development, an amount of 11.5 billion Ghana cedis as capital expenditure has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to improve road infrastructure, an amount of 6.5 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push infrastructure program has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to support education delivery, an amount of 915 million for goods and services under the Ministry of Education, including sanitary pads, has been paid. Mr. Speaker, to ensure smooth and effective functioning of government, an amount of 7.9 billion Ghana cedis for goods and services have been paid. Right, Honorable Speaker. To protect our rivers, forest reserves, and agricultural lands against the Galamsey menace, an amount of 16 million to the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NIMOS, has been paid. Mr. Speaker, permit me to end where I began, not with numbers, but with reflection. Mr. Speaker, permit me to end where I began, not with a number, but with a reflection. Right, Honorable Speaker, before this administration took office, this country stood at the edge of an economic cliff. The city was in free fall. Inflation has raised 50%. Our sovereign debt rated junk. Our access to the world capital market had been cut off. And for the 17th time in our history, Ghana turned to the IMF for a bailout. Mr. Speaker, that was the Ghana we inherited. Today, inflation stands at 5.3%. Our currency, the Ghana cedi, has stabilized. Economic growth is above 6% and broad-based. Our debt to GDP is now 45%, years ahead of schedule. The primary balance is in surplus, not in deficit. Interest rates have declined significantly, and Ghana has successfully completed the final review of the IMF bailout program. Mr. Speaker, we promised to move this economy from the emergency room to the wellness center. Mr. Speaker, we have kept that promise. Mr. Speaker, I give this House my firm assurance this economy will never return to the emergency room under our watch. Right, Honorable Speaker? I want to give this House my firm assurance that this economy will never return to the emergency room under our watch. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. These achievements do not belong to government. They belong to the people of Ghana. Behind every number in this statement is the sacrifice of an ordinary Ghanaian. The pensioner who accepted painful and crude haircuts on a lifetime savings. The bank and businesses that absorbed extraordinary losses and costs. Millions of citizens who endured difficult adjustments so that their country could recover. And the market trader, the nurse, the teacher, the entrepreneur, and the young graduate who lived through some of the hardest months in our recent history and never gave up on his country. Mr. Speaker, stabilization was not won in this chamber alone. It was won in homes, on farms, in workshops, in marketplaces, and through the patience and resilience of the Ghanaian people. This administration will never take that sacrifice for granted. Mr. Speaker, we know that inflation alone does not refill an empty pot. We know that a stronger cedi does not instantly repair a household budget stretched by years of economic mismanagement and crisis. And we also know that there is still a distance between recovery and a relief at the kitchen table. But we also know this, Mr. Speaker, your sacrifice was not in vain. It secures something priceless, a firm foundation for our dear country. And on that foundation, we will build the Ghana we want. Mr. Speaker, to every Ghanaian who endured, to the market woman in Kejitia, the farmer in Busunu, the teacher in Wa, the entrepreneur in Sekendi Takrade, and every young person still searching for the opportunity they deserve, I say, on behalf of His Excellency President Mahama, thank you. Your sacrifice is the reason Ghana is standing today. Your future is the reason we refuse to stop here. Mr. Speaker, I now speak the hard truth that discipline demands. Right, Honorable Speaker, stability is not a trophy to be worn once and displayed forever. It is a garden. It must be tended every single day or we lose it. Ghana has traveled this road before. We have stabilized, celebrated, relaxed, and unfortunately relapsed. 17 times we turned to the IMF for a bailout. We are determined that the 17th time shall be the last. But that determination cannot rest on the shoulders of the government alone. This is my call to every Ghanaian. The gains we have secured are national gains. They demand a national commitment to protect them. Mr. Speaker, it means paying your taxes so that our schools, hospitals, roads are financed increasingly from our own resources rather than by unsustainable borrowings. It means demanding value for money for every cedi of public expenditure and refusing to look away when public resources are wasted. Mr. Speaker, it means holding this government and every government that follows to the fiscal rules we have written into law. Mr. Speaker, fiscal discipline can no longer be a policy of a minister. It must become the culture of our country. Mr. Speaker, stabilization can never be the destination. And stabilization was never the destination. It was only the price of entry. Ghana has paid that price. What comes next is the work that changes life at scale, the work of transformation. Through the new economy that His Excellency President Mahama will unveil, we will build an economy that does not merely withstand shocks, but create jobs, generate wealth, and grow on the strength of what Ghana produces. Mr. Speaker, the true measure of a finance minister is not how much he spends, but how faithful he protects the resources entrusted to him. Right, Honorable Speaker. The true measure of a finance minister is not how much he spends, but how faithful he protects the resources entrusted to him. The money we manage does not belong to those entrusted to manage it. It belongs to the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, it belongs to you and belongs to all of us. Every cedi collected in taxes, every cedi borrowed, and every cedi spent carries with it a sacred obligation to use it wisely, honestly, and always in the national interest. My assurance to this House and to every Ghanaian is simple. Your money is safe. Your money is safe. Under the leadership of President Mahama, your economy is in safe hands. And as long as I have the honor to serve as Minister for Finance, it will remain so. Mr. Speaker, I pledge to level with you always. I will tell you the truth about the state of the public finances, whether the news is welcoming or difficult. We will never conceal our challenges or exaggerate our successes. Trust is about the truth, and truth must remain the foundation of sound economic management. Our responsibility now is not merely to celebrate these gains, but to preserve them for future generations.